Hello and welcome to the Mobile Accessible Games Accessible Year in Review panel with your host, Aaron Spelker. That's me. And this year, we're welcoming back Michael Gray and Jesse Andersen. And our third, unfortunately, which was Liam Irvin, who was here last year. He's unfortunately not feeling a little bit under the weather today, so he's not going to be here. But we do put a reach out to somebody else who might show up. So you might get a third person somewhere here in the middle of our, our panel session. And we hope he's able to join us. But Jesse and Michael, I'm glad that you guys are back. Welcome again.
What? What's up? Feel better, Liam.
Yeah. So, guys, I always like to start. People who follow me on Mobile Accessible Games have seen probably interviews that I've done with you guys in the past or other collaborations that we've done together. But for those who are new, as there's always new people joining, why don't we take a minute here? Just tell us who you are, what you do, what you're about, and I will start with Michael. Tell us all about yourself.
All right, you want me first?
Yep.
Well, y'all know me from YouTube. This is Michael Gray, and all I do are just mobile games on your phone, strategy, roguelikes, whatever, anything that's a strategy or turn-based or building game, and I play it on YouTube and try to have a lot of fun. And other than that, that's just about it.
You know what I particularly like about what you do too is so he'll have a lot of playlists where he'll do like 20, 30, 50 different videos about a game and really get into the nitty gritty and the in depth and pull a game really apart. I mean, what do you on Sporty Quest? What do you have, like 100 videos or something like that on Sporty Quest? Something ridiculous.
Originally on Sortie Quest, when I first played it, I did 144 videos on Sortie Quest, and they ate up every single one. That is Charlie Seligman and his crew. Man, those people are deep. They love their Sortie Quest. I actually had some folks comment on some old Sortie Quest videos I did about right before COVID, and yeah, that game is still going.
Yeah,
So
well,
yeah.
they're still adding stuff to that. So Jesse, we'll turn it over to you. Jesse, tell us who you are, what you're about, what you're up to.
Sure, thanks. Good to be here again. And yeah, my name is Jesse Andersen, and by day I work as an assistive technology specialist, and outside of that, been busy doing a lot of other things. I've got a built up kind of a little bit of a secondary career as a technology, game, and XR advocate and consultant for accessibility. And for the past 11 plus ish years, I've been running the illegally cited YouTube channel. Try to work with developers whenever I can, mobile, AAA, indie game developers. Do some work with the XR Access organization that works with virtual and augmented reality accessibility, Microsoft, their low vision advisory board, and whatever else I can kind of get my hands into. So yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about your YouTube channel, because you do quite I mean, you'll do reviews there, you'll do some walkthroughs, you'll do some quick looks, on different types of games and on different types of platforms. Anything else I'm missing there of kind of the focus of the
Um,
YouTube channel?
Yeah, I've branched out over the years. My primary type of video is I don't dive super deep into a game. Like I'll do maybe one or two pretty, fairly long videos about a game or an app or a piece of technology. But especially for accessible technology, and like I said, I totally appreciate it. Like sometimes I'll get comments of like, "Hey, you should do a full playthrough of a particular game," and I'm like, "Thank you, I definitely appreciate that." And every once in a while, if I'm really, really hooked on a game, I might do that. And I think it'd be fun to kind of share just the shenanigans that might happen during a game. But a lot of times, I take the approach of I want to show people a game, whether it's a low vision spotlight, an accessible game spotlight, which those are more the games that are totally blind playable, be they console, PC, mobile, and especially for the accessible ones. I want to give people just enough of a look at the game or at the technology so that they can go, oh, this might be something I might be into, and I want to encourage other people to go buy and play the games for themselves. But I also cover, Uh, like I said, a little bit of not as much virtual reality as I used to, because I'm sort of frustrated. I've kind of taken a VR hiatus because nothing was really moving forward in VR accessibility at the moment, at least consumer facing. But I do other stuff with, some kind of geeky stuff that I've collected over the last couple of years. Got a couple of really cool things there. I did a kind of a mini series this year called Growing Up Illegally Sighted. And that was kind of a combination of where I would get a lot of common questions. How did I get into assistive technology? How did I become a technology specialist? How did I get into YouTube? If I wanted to get into tech or game accessibility, how would I do that? I talked about different things like, my experiences growing up and how technology has changed when I was in grade school, high school, college. I had a video just all about employment and what I would really recommend for people because just doesn't matter how qualified you think you are. You get out of college, you think, okay, I'm good, I'm ready, let's get a job. If you're disabled, it could be a lot harder than you might think. So I'm really kind of proud of that and would like to get more viewers on that particular playlist. But yeah, everything is divided into playlists. I got a lot of stuff there, so hopefully people will find something they like.
Yeah, I have the same thing where people will say, oh, yeah, I love your game reviews. You should do a walkthrough or a playthrough. But like, each of us are basically, one man shops of creating content, and you can't do everything.
Hmm.
My niche is I'm gonna find games, review games, tell you about games. I'll interview some developers and advocates around accessible gaming. But I'm gonna leave and tell people to go to Michael Gray. You want a long playthrough, learn the ins and outs of Lost Vault, Michael's your guy.
Hmm.
Oh
Here,
yeah, bring them
here,
my way. Send them,
right.
send them over here.
Yeah, here's loads of playlists of playing all the different types of characters. You should go to him and talk to that. So I tell people to go other places for that because it just can't necessarily be everything to everyone. Um, Now, yeah, Jesse and I were talking about this, Michael, just right before you joined. But I was telling him, like, this was actually kind of an interesting year for me, 2023, around accessibility and being involved in the space. And that one, I played quite a few games that I really enjoyed this year. From that aspect of things, I found some things that I was really excited about. Got to play even going into the beginning part of next year. Quite a few games that are going to come out, in January, February that I've reviewed already that are, I think, really exceptional and really fun for people. So I've been really enjoying that part of being involved in this space. But where I have been struggling a little bit is I also feel like I'm kind of doing it out into a void. Like I feel like the feedback, maybe people are, done, being home in COVID with nothing to do and they're out and about, so they're just not responding or commenting or liking or doing the things that they did in the past. That I just feel like I'm, out there in a void a little bit, and I'm not sure is this resonating with people? Because for me, if it's resonating with people, if I'm, giving somebody like, oh, I didn't think there was, a word game for me to enjoy, and now I found one, and my life has changed, and I can enjoy this, and I can have fun. Like just that from one or two people in the year would be a spark enough for me to be really motivated and into it. But the silence for me, at least this year, has felt very deafening. And I don't know, what your guys' experience has been around um, participation and engagement this year, maybe versus other years. If you've seen it up or down, am I in a bubble here? Is this only my experience, or
Well,
have you guys been experiencing the same sort of thing?
well, this is Jesse here, and I mean, I see, I definitely see where you're coming from. I think for especially like my channel is maybe a little bit different, where for the past couple few years, I was also streaming on Twitch fairly often. But late last year, kind of especially this year, I've taken more of a hiatus from that, and I've kind of been really just concentrating on the YouTube channel. But one thing on my channel that I've noticed is I do get a fair bit of engagement, likes and views and things for the blind accessible, especially iOS accessible stuff, maybe some PC, some console accessible stuff, like some of those things that have come out this year. But anything low vision, I mean, it's gotten a little bit better. but a lot of what I play and a lot of what I still, enjoy and try to cover, because, again, there's a lot of people that are covering totally blind stuff now. Like, it's great that like both of you are doing it. I know several other people who are totally blind. But I think low vision actually sort of gets overlooked. But the funny thing is I don't get near as much engagement. I don't get near as many views for the low vision stuff that I cover. But I have gotten some nice comments. I've gotten some nice, people have reached out via email or comments. It's kind of been up and down. Um, and I have mixed feelings about 2023. On one hand, I think it's been an amazing year for games. It's been an amazing year for, you know, low vision games, accessible, blind accessible games. But I do want to briefly call out, I will go out and say it. I think it's been a horrible year for people in the gaming industry, be they game creators, developers, publishers, the people that are doing the work. A certain award show did not acknowledge that at all. But you have all these games making gazillions of dollars, and they lay everybody off.
Yeah.
So the executives can make their money, and there's just every other day there's another story about hundreds, if not thousands, of people getting laid off. There's actually somebody built a website called videogamelayoffs.com, and it's depressing.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I just want to give a shout out to all the people who put their heart into, games and whatever they created the last several years and kind of got crapped on.
Yeah. Speaking of that, so in the recent game awards, which focuses mostly on console and AAA gaming,
Hmm.
for the most part, I mean, another thing that somebody pointed out was that the indie category and the people who won indie game, where winning an award could really drastically change the whole trajectory of their game and their company and everything,
Yep.
got no stage time, and
Well,
didn't
and
get time to be up
even
there.
the funny thing is, it was like there was a whole kind of controversy about with the indie game that won, or whether one of the nominees was they were kind of like an indie group, but they were under an umbrella of a big AAA developer.
So,
And it wasn't just indie games that got pushed off the stage. It was literally like there like there was the Zelda one, they got kind of pushed off the stage quickly. And then the game of the year, they the one of the guys from Baldur's Gate 3, he was doing this nice dedication to one of the team members that had actually passed away. And in the middle of that, they kind of got the get out,
yeah,
wrap it up.
music playing.
And yeah, I really wish it wasn't so much of a, like, I wish they would honor more of the developers and maybe not want to kind of be so wrapped up in kissing Hollywood's butt all the time. It's like, that would be different from Hollywood,
Yeah, I think
Go
I
about the
heard the stat on
games.
that one. Again, so this is mostly around console gaming, Xbox,
Hmm.
PlayStation, but it was something like a nearly 4 hour show, and only 16 minutes was related to actually winners' speeches,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
it was kind
so
of
the
rough.
rest was filler and
And the
coming
accessibility
out.
award, which I was a part of, actually, that was part of the pre-show. They did a nice job with it, but I wish it was on the main stage so more
Right.
people got exposed to it. They did a decent job in the pre-show with the award. We got more time than a lot of the other awards did, but I still wish it was in the main show.
For those who don't know, why don't you tell people, what accessibility, what game were you just talking about that you got a chance to be involved in?
Well, sure. So the Game Awards, ran by Jeff Keighley. He's been doing those for like 10 years now. He also does like the Summer Game Fest the last few years. And one of the categories was the Innovation in Accessibility category. They started in, I believe, 2020. And funny enough, like, disclaimer, I was asked if I wanted to be a panel member. Like, basically, I didn't vote for any of the other categories, but since it was sort of a niche category, there were, a few of us that were, not just blind low vision, but people with disabilities that would actually do the nominees for the innovation in game accessibility category. And so yeah, I've been doing that for the last 3-4 years.
And what game won this year?
Forza Motorsport, which is actually really incredible because it is a hardcore simulation racing game, and it is totally playable. If you're totally blind, you can still play it. You can play it with like some of the driving assists on or off. There's a bunch of audio. I mean, the plethora, the amount of audio cues and text to speech and just other like things that you can have in the game is it's pretty incredible. And I've watched several people play the game who are totally blind. It's pretty awesome. I'm impressed.
So, Michael, my friend who's the most optimistic about everything, what was your vibe about 2023 and how the year went?
Thinking about what you said about how 2023 has been, thinking about what Jesse's also said about it, I think I gotta agree. The zeitgeist of 2023 has been pretty difficult. It's been rough. Again, thinking about how, Aaron, you've jumped feet first into this industry, and I do know Jesse's been around for a long time. I was watching his videos in the very beginning. It's really rough out there in the world, and you listen to what Jesse said about how low vision's been overlooked a lot by the gaming industry. There's been some standouts, but it's been really rough. It's been an island kind of thing. And thinking about, Aaron, what you do, the groups that you run, like Mobile Accessible Games, and your channel, Aaron Spelker, it's really hard to get that feedback. So when you're in this community for blind and visually impaired accessibility and gaming, and like Jesse was talking about, VR, and just not only not getting that support, like what Jesse was talking about, VR and having it fall apart, but also not getting that same place on the podium to talk about what great things accessible gaming has done. It is kind of rough. And then, Aaron, what you were talking about, the whole ideal of getting feedback and feeling alone, I can definitely resonate with you on that point. It's been a very, very long, very difficult drought this year in games. And the standouts are pretty much everything you've covered on your mobile accessible gaming and on your channel. The developers you've talked about, they're pretty much the standout individuals who have kept this industry going. And what I feel is that all the people here right now in this little panel interview, and all the different groups that you all are on, this is the community. We are the members of the community who speak for the other individuals out there who can't be heard, whose voices are not heard. We are speaking for them, and we are advocating for them, whether it's Jesse advocating for low vision and console gaming and all kinds of plethora of accessibility devices. I've heard him talk about so many different devices, and he deserves a huge amount of credit for covering things. He's covering things, not just the stuff that's popular, but also the stuff that's just a little bit more iconic and unique. And Aaron, I see you cover things that are not always that popular as a game. I mean, you're covering all kinds of accessible gaming. And you jumped in, as I said, and just you didn't realize when you jumped into this community, you were going to be the poster boy of all the good and bad that there is in the accessibility community. Because when you're in the front lines, you're going to take all the blowback from everything that works and doesn't work. And what I've found for myself personally is that when there are no games, my motivation drops. And when there are no real unique games and you just get that linear, just kind of boring, kind of like go nowhere game, it just really just depletes me as a content creator. So yeah, I feel you right now. I feel you both that it's been 2023 has been a rough year.
Well, like there's things too. Like I sit there, I'm like, why is not every single blind person out there, all 300 million part of my group? Because I have 160 accessible mobile game reviews out there. I have to think for long form reviews of games that is the most extensive list that is out there on the internet. I have not seen anything that is, there are, like AppleVis has list of games, but it's just like, here's the game. It doesn't actually do a review of the game.
Well,
So I'm talking
especially,
about,
yeah, and the video form stuff as well.
right. So like, I'm like, there's so many games that I feel like, this should be the go-to spot. Second, as Michael, as you were saying, like I review um, the games of all types because I want to make sure that there is a game for everybody. So if you like, baby simulation games, so that's not really my thing, but I'm going to find it, I'm going to play it, I'm going to review it, and give it a fair review for what it is, because there's somebody out there who likes baby simulation games, and I want to make sure that they can come to this list and find a game that they want to play. I don't want anyone to come to the list and be like, oh, this is just a list of all RPG games. Nothing's here for me. I want them to look at that list of 160 games so far and say, oh yeah, there's some games here for me. I see something that fits what I like to play, because I think I have 25 or 30 different genres of game types that are
Yeah,
out there.
you do, and
Yeah,
you're dropping all kinds of game genres, and those folks are like, okay, Aaron, are you going to cover every single game in the simulation category? Are you going to cover every single RPG game? Are you cover every roguelike? Um, you're kind of putting yourself out there on the forefront, and that means everyone's coming to you. But like I said, it's that zeitgeist where you're just in a community that is incredibly diverse. And it's a beautiful thing, but it's also a difficult bronco to wrangle, to use an archaic expression.
now this funny thing that happens. So every December, I do this thing where I release a game in which I've written the review for, and then I go to post the review sometimes months after I've written the game. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to, I'm trying to mix it up. Be like, okay, here's a text adventure game, and then a word game, and then a third person shooter game, and then a different type of puzzle game, and then a board game. So I'm kind of like always trying to cycle through and do it. So if I have just released a, 2D adventure game, and I have another one that I've played and I've reviewed, I might not release that for 2 or 3 months, because I'm trying to mix up the genres. So sometimes what happens to me is 2 or 3 months later, I go to post this game that I've played, I've written the review. Often it's a review I really, really like, and to find out the game's no longer on the App Store, which will happen to me sometimes. So in December, I always release out like, all right, here's the reviews of games that you could have played, but it took me a while.
Wait a second. This is where I think you need to go to Jesse, because Jesse can tell you there's some epically beautiful games. He's talked about this before. And Jesse, you remember that some of those really great audio games that were
Oh
Like
yeah,
just
Nightjar
I knew that was
this is
coming.
just
Audio Defense.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I do the same thing. I try to mix things up. Especially with low vision, the last couple of years have been just insanely great for retro first person shooters, and that's really my jam. But I try to mix things up. I put some low vision stuff in there. I try to put some blind accessible things. I try to, PC, console, mobile, a few apps here and there, hardware reviews. Like you said, that's a great strategy, is, don't load up on, like one type of thing all in one go, because people, give people a variety. It's a great
Well,
strategy.
well, and Jesse, you were saying right before we start too, you're like, oh, that I watch your videos, but you haven't done too many lately, which is true. It's slowed down, but that again, I'm just kind of malaise that I'm having. I have reached out every game that I review. I
Hmm.
reach out to the developer, be like, I'd love to review you for your game. I'm going to put out a review of your game. I'd love to do an interview, find out how you created this game, get your insights, and just the responses are not coming back like they used
Right.
to. I used to, anybody I reached out to, they were absolutely, interview me. So pretty much with every review that I had, just about, I could pair that with an interview with the game developer. But I'm just not having that experience this year. It's been very slow
Hmm.
of getting people who I would love to interview them about their game, and I'm just not getting them to
Yeah, I mean,
respond
that's a
back.
bummer. It's a bummer too, because like I said, I really enjoy those types of videos because you hear a little bit about the game, how they got into, especially you hear a lot of stories about how people got into accessibility. Maybe they started a game that was more mainstream and then somebody reached out to them, or just, how they ended up in working with blind players. And yeah, I hope that they do come back.
Yeah, and for me, again, two things I always want to do with those is one, I want to promote a great game that I've played and telling the community about. So this gives them some more
Hmm.
view into it and promotion, if you will. But to also, I really try to humanize for the community that it's not just a game. There is a person behind that game, and a person who's spending a lot of time and effort and might take 2 years teaching themselves coding like Zach Tidwell with Xanagrams. And
Absolutely.
let's realize that that's what they're doing, and you know understand there's a human behind that, and maybe through this video you'll take the time to go out and hit that you like their game, or put a review, or pay 99 cents for some purchase in the game to help financially support them, because I want people to realize that there's real humans behind this, and if you don't support the humans, then the humans go and do something else where they will get supported, and you won't get accessible games anymore. So
Yep.
That's
Amen.
exactly, yeah, I gotta say amen too. I mean, I think that's what we've all talked about in our respective arenas. I think Jesse's talked about it a lot. You've got to get out there and support developers. You've got to, as you mentioned, Aaron, humanize them and think about them as more than a creator for you. You just can't have everything you want, but you've got to think about, maybe if I give back, that feedback loop is going to come back even stronger when this developer gets support from me, when I purchase their games, when I reply to them with a kind and thoughtful and introspective email about what they're doing in accessibility, when I'm not entitled and I ask for things in a kind and representative way, when I reach out to others in my community. It's kind of that part of the blind and visually impaired community where there's that isolation, where we are all kind of nomads on our own island. And it's really hard to reach out to each other because there aren't a lot of formats for all of us at the same point. Aaron, you facilitate that. Jesse, you facilitate that. I've watched you both interact with folks, and I'm confident that all of us can interact with anyone in the community at large very, very well and represent what our communities desire. It's one of those situations where the amount of content, the amount of creation, and the amount of development for our community has slowed, in my opinion. And we're looking at a situation where we're having to pick a little bit more apart some of the offerings that we do get. And it's become difficult to kind of like not get bogged down analyzing just one strategy. What I found on my channel is that sometimes I'm just stuck with just one really good game that kind of
Hmm.
encompasses everything I want, right? And I'd love to play a shooter like what Jesse plays all the time, but there aren't a lot of accessible shooters. And if they are, they're in a console that I just may not be able to afford or have the setup to kind of employ. And then on the other hand, I look at it like maybe I do need to expand my horizons so that I am playing different games. So I've looked at what you talked about, Aaron. You may had that conversation about computer games, and I am not terribly good at using a computer. But again, my partner's been really good, and again works in the accessibility field, and she's been very, very helpful to me. So she's been helping me a lot with understanding accessibility. She's got all the things that you're supposed to know in accessibility, like JAWS and
yeah.
all the features and all the devices. And, she's top in her field, but I'm not top in my field when it comes to accessibility.
Well, and what
Mhm,
I would say to that is, the
mhm,
nice thing is you don't necessarily have to invest a ton of money to get a pretty decent PC. If you want to get a laptop or a desktop or whatever, NVDA is it's a free open source screen reader that works very well. Windows it works, quite well with a lot of different assistive technologies. Even console wise, like, if you're not, obviously we don't necessarily care about things like 4K gaming and whatever. So you can go out and get an Xbox Series S. God, what were they selling? They were selling it with, I forget what game they were bundling it with. Maybe I can't even remember, but it was like, was like 250, under $200. And that was not bad. I picked it up pretty cheap last year. And if there's one encouraging thing that I would say is that, yeah, I've noticed kind of a downturn, at least maybe what I've paid attention to, of games that are, specifically designed for blind players. But the encouraging thing that I do see, and what I think is ultimately probably a better thing because it's more self-sustaining, is that your mainstream games, be they mobile or console or PC, there's becoming quite a few more mainstream games that sighted people can play, but also blind people can play too. I can rattle off probably a good half a dozen or more this year on both PC and console that are, they're not designed just for blind players or primarily for blind players. So they're able to stay afloat a little bit better because they've got much more of a, kind of a broad audience that can support the game as well. So that's an encouraging thing that I'm seeing over the last couple of years.
Like Mortal Kombat or something. I noticed that one was really big when that one
It's a good
dropped.
one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I get, very frustrated with the community as well is like, people will be like, oh, there's no accessible games for us, or so few accessible games for us. But then in the same breath, they're like, oh, why isn't this game free? Or why do I have to pay for this? It's like, you're in control in some ways of if there's going to be more accessible games. If you don't support the developers, well, in the future, there are going to be fewer accessible games for us. If someone puts out a good, accessible game, whether it be on mobile, or like, if we're talking console, like, the Veil Shadow of the Crown, perfectly accessible game for a blind person, like, you should be all over,
Oh yeah.
advocating for that game and saying what a great job, that developer did, and buying that game and telling friends about the game and getting more people to buy that game, because if other developers can see that there's a market that will financially support them.
Wait, Jess, you want to?
They will put out more of those.
No,
Jesse,
I'm
you want
just
to step
thinking,
in
like,
this one
man, I've been
first?
preaching from that mountaintop for years, man.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I just like I
Pet
always
peeve.
sometimes I can't help myself, but like someone just the other day, I'm on like a Swordy Quest Facebook group, and they're like, oh, why isn't the portal level free? I'm like, do you go to your job and go to work for
Yeah.
free and have your boss not pay you? I mean, like,
Oh yeah,
stop asking him to do things for free.
there was somebody not long ago, I think it was a comment on my channel, and I don't normally respond, but I'm like, dude, you know what? No, I had to say so. Somebody was like, yeah, can you do a video about how to get every game on Steam for free? I'm like, A, I don't know how I would even do that, and B, I literally said, I don't think I need to tell you why that is absolutely not gonna happen.
And why that's bad
Really,
for
dude?
you. Yeah, why that's bad for
Yeah.
you. Because if
Didn't
everybody
Yeah,
does
I'm like,
that, guess
what?
what? There will never be
Really?
another accessible game for you ever. So
Didn't Jesse?
No.
Didn't you post that on X? Like, no.
I don't know. I might have, but I know I replied to it in my comments. I'm like, and like I said, normally I try to be nice about it, but I'm like, dude, stop, please, really.
yeah, and you know what? Look. There's some people who don't have a lot of money. Okay, I get it.
Oh,
But
I get that. I've been there. Trust me.
yeah, I get it. But you know what? You can do a lot of things. You can go out on the Apple Store and post a review for that person. You can go and on your Facebook channel or your Twitter account and say, hey, I'm playing this game. It's really great, and just do what you can for that person, because all of that does matter. I mean, again, what's the ridiculous number, at least on mobile, like 1,500 games a day come out on mobile. So like to
Yeah.
get heard and get seen is like near impossible. I mean, that's particularly why I'm so excited for Zach Tidwell and his game Xanagrams. It got some traction in the blind community. It's now on, AppleVis as a Golden Apple winner for the year, which is going to get him even more attention. And
Well
Zach's
deserved.
and Zach's going to get an
Definitely.
opportunity to make some more games, I think. So that's wonderful for him. I'm very excited for him.
I gotta answer that one though, Aaron. I gotta answer that one. About like the whole idea of wanting things for free, feeling entitled because of being blind and visually impaired, and also talking about the whole idea of whether or not it's financially viable to purchase games. I have got to weigh in on this briefly and just say we've got to American Idol the games that we love, the developers we love. We've got to get in there and support them. American Idol is a very simple, it's not on TV
You got to
anymore.
vote.
It's a very simple thing. You vote for the person you like for 99 cents or in a phone call, and that person becomes a superstar, billionaire, overnight sensation in the music or talent community. Same format goes for everything. If you want someone to succeed, you've got to support them, whether it's a Reddit post, a Facebook mention, a share, a comment, purchasing one of their packages. You've got to support this person in and out. And I think that's been our theme today, talking about humanizing developers and people who work in this industry who are just basically working behind the scenes to create content for us, sometimes at very little profit margin, and usually no profit margin. And then the whole idea of whether or not, as a person who is disabled, whether or not you can afford to pay for games. I've talked about this on my channel, Game. Again, I didn't make any friends when I made these comments, and I won't make any friends now, but I'll just tell you this. If I have a choice between buying a $8.48 cup of coffee from my absolutely favorite coffee shop, whose name won't be mentioned because I'm not sponsored, and getting a cool game like Ita, which is a new game somebody just mentioned to me. I thought the name was spelled incorrectly, so no, that's the spelling. Thank you, Giant Albrecht. But
we'll talk
yes.
about that one later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ica, just so you know,
yeah.
because I've talked to the developer. Ica is a slang for something, so it's really idle something or idle stuff.
Oh,
So Ica
okay.
means stuff. So it's really idle stuff. Is
idle stuff. So
I wondered
I'd like
about
to
that.
know where that comes from.
it's
I would like to know what cultural background that comes from, or from what.
That's the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't know that. But yeah, finishing up, just saying that I will take that $8.48 and go ahead and purchase 6 Ages, which is $9.95. Yeah, that's a little pricey.
That's an expensive game. As on a mobile phone, most mobile games are $5.99 and less. Some of them for 99 cents, some of them for $2.99, some are free with some in-game purchases. Just spend 99 cents on an in-game purchase.
Well, and like you guys are getting off lucky if you're just mainly playing mobile. I mean, you don't even want to know. I don't even want to know how damn much money I spent on Steam games this year alone. Oh dear Lord.
No, console games are $70 a pop, and then DLC for another 30. So you're dropping $100 if you're into that.
Yeah, we won't.
And if you want some cool stuff, if you want some avatars or something cute to walk around in game, don't even. I mean, World of Warcraft is accessible, but it doesn't mean it's cheap to play. It doesn't mean that you're going to you won't be shelling out some bucks.
Yeah, but I mean, even I play a lot of indie games on Steam, and even if you pay, 5 to 15, $20 a pop, that adds up, man. Like I said, I've played a lot of games this year, and I don't want to see that end of year bill, But
like on, just dropping some names of games that have come out and are on that list of mobile accessible games. So Word Voyance came out, which is basically, Scrabble, the board game Scrabble. You pay whatever $2.99 something for Word Voyance. You can play that the rest of your life. You can play Scrabble the rest of your life. You could have thousands and thousands of gameplay hours for your $2.99. For your cup of coffee, you'll have 10 minutes of drinking that cup of coffee. So which is the better?
There's no cup of coffee that's $2.99.
Whatever.
I gotta.
Dunkin' Donuts cup of coffee. I don't know, but whatever. You can have endless endless hours of play.
Right.
And, you know, some of these Idolica, for example, I mean, that's going to take you months to actually finish that game.
Oh yeah.
So you'll get months of playing time out of it. So, you know, that's some of the things of, you know, again, oh, I got to pay $5.99. That's so much. I mean, people pay $5.99 for all sorts of stuff that has much lower, you know, value, and occupation of your mind's, you know, brain space and stuff like that. So,
And
but
in their defense, though, Aaron, in their defense of the people who are struggling with affording a game that is in the $2.99 to $5.99 range, I understand you, and I have love for you because, as Jesse said, and you know, Aaron, and I know, we've all been there. We've all had some rough times. You got a Christmas shop, you've got to pay for your accessibility equipment, you're in college, you're trying to afford your career, like Jesse mentioned. Just because you finish college doesn't mean that you're going to get hired as a blind and visually impaired person. There's a disconnect there. We've got it rough. And you're not going to always have money. You're not always. So I think budgeting, I think that's been mentioned before, budgeting for what you want, taking the time to do things that cost nothing. I've seen developers like Charlie Seligman and other particular developers, like the developer Charlie Seligman, he's the developer of SwordyQuest, and I've seen him give away tons of stuff just from a person who spent time commenting and expressing, helping him debug things, and just doing layman things that you can do as a supporter of a developer in a game. And he'll give you free stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had something similar with oh crap, now I just went blank. The real-time game. You know, it's like a it's like a choose your own text adventure, real time. I can't think of the name. But that developer, you know, I covered, I was on the Blind Abilities interview with him, and I did a video for his game, and you know, I did spend some money on the game, but he's like, hey, thanks for promoting it. And he threw me just you know, a little bit of in-game currency to be like, hey, you know, here you go, man. Thanks a lot for the help. And it really helped him.
Yeah. I mean, you know, along those lines, because look, I super appreciate
what was that
game? I know what game when one of you was talking
I'll find
about,
it on my phone real quick.
Yeah. Because I think I know the one you're talking about, where you build up your army and defense and get attacked and stuff like that. But what I was going to say is, you know, look, I put out 50 games a year of review. In order to, what was that?
Timecrest.
Oh, Timecrest, yeah.
Oh yeah, Timecrest, yeah, that's classic. Yeah.
So, you know, I put out 50 games a year that I review. I probably download at least 100, because some of the games that I download I find are not accessible enough to actually review and waste anybody's time with. And then there's some that I downloaded them, but I just don't get to them or whatever. So I'm paying, you know, 100 games on, you know, let's just say on average $3 a game. Let's just say. So I'm dropping $300 a year, because what I want to do is I want to play that game and give somebody a really in-depth, here's what this game is. This is what you do. This is what you'll see. This is where it's good or bad in accessibility. So someone doesn't go and say, all I got is $5.99 and I just bought this game and it's not what I thought it was, or it's not as accessible enough for me. And I just wasted my $5.99 and that's all I had for a game this year or a game this month or whatever the case may be. So, you know, I look at it like I will take that financial bullet for you. I pay for all the games. I don't let it, and, you know, developers have offered to give you games for free, and I've told them no for two reasons. One, look, I believe in supporting you. You know, you're making an accessible game. I want to give you money. That's supposed to take money out of your pocket. And two, you know, I don't want any sort of conflict of interest. You know, like, you know, I'll just pay for it and then I can say whatever I want. I'm not beholden to anybody. But you know, I very much do that. You know, take that financial bullet. For people just to, you know, make sure that when they spend their money, you know, okay, I know Word Voyance, it's Scrabble and it's really accessible and I love Scrabble, and okay, all I got is $3 and that's what I'm going to pay. You know, or I'm weighing between two games that are both $2.99 and I can, you know, read up on those and realize one of them's an A game and the other's a C game. So let me spend my money on the A-rated game as opposed to the C-rated game. So that's what that mobile accessible game group is about as well, is to do that legwork for other people, so they don't waste their money getting something that is not really what they thought. But
I noticed you put the prices. I noticed you started putting the prices of games in your mobile accessible group, so people can see exactly how much each game costs. It's really nice.
And I tell people that I review the game with not the price in mind. So like I never say like this game is a C because it's not worth $10, because it's not for me to say whether $10 is worth it to you or not. So I just I review the game on the game's merits, and then I put the cost in, and you can decide whether that game, as I describe it, is worth $2.99 or $5.99 or $9.99, whatever the case may be. So price never factors into to the actual review itself, but I do put it there so people know. And a lot of games you can play quite a bit for free until you decide you actually like it and then spend some money. So there's
I just found one that's free, Brave Brain. It's free to play, and Brave. Have you've reviewed that one already?
I have,
Brave Brain. That one's totally free to play.
I haven't played it yet.
Oh, I'm gonna have to spoil it for you.
Well, that's it. So that one's on the list for this year as well, by Kariki. I can never say their name right. Kariki Games, who are the same people who did To the Dragon Cave, which I thought was just fascinating that they did a first-person shooter type of game in To the Dragon Cave, and then they went to a quiz game. It's such a radically different genre.
And it's done so well. It's done so good, even with Direct Touch, which I'm not a. Well, let me just keep that to myself. Direct Touch. Oh boy.
Some interfaces better than their own Direct Touch. Yeah,
Direct Touch can be a little touchy. I just call it Direct Touchy.
What's actually funny? So think about that too, like Brave Brain. So Brave Brain quiz game. There's lots of different genres. Travel and history and all that, and you're playing through different locations and getting all sorts of different sets of questions. And I ended up looking at in the beginning of next year, I'm going to be putting out my review on Trivia Crack, which is an old game, but it hasn't been terribly accessible at times. Sometimes it's been accessible, then it went a while on inaccessible, and now it's back to accessible. So I'm reviewing Trivia Crack, and Trivia Crack has been downloaded like 300 million times in 180 countries, has made over like $150 million. And was from a very small Argentinian developer. So it started in Argentina in Spanish, and then really hadn't gone anywhere. But then they made an English version of it, and it just Trivia Crack went absolutely nuts.
I remember playing that several years ago. It was really accessible, and then I kind of quit because it kind of broke accessibility for a while.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, it's back to accessible if you're interested. But
I've never gotten to play it. I'll have to try it.
Yeah, but I was just thinking, like, again, that Brave Brain's not a huge team, but that could be the next $150 million quiz game that comes out.
It's cute. It's charming. The music, the sound effects. It has a little RPG element to it on the light side, but it's really adorable.
That's fun.
Yeah, I
and those people are really nice. Again, for those who don't know, that developer. They are a husband who has some background in computer programming, and his wife is blind. And he kind of was like, I really would love you to be able to enjoy the same type of games I like. Like, I'd love you to know what a first-person shooter is like. So he, went off and created To the Dragon Cave to give her a first-person shooter experience, because there wasn't really anything at the time that was really great accessibility of the game he wanted to create. So he created that genre for her, a blind accessible first-person shooter, and that's how that company got started. And then they went randomly into a quiz.
That's one of my favorite interviews you did, Aaron. The one with the Geeky Reeky games, the one with the husband and wife. Yeah. You can see how much he loves her and why he just did he coded a whole game for his wife. My God, he's making the rest of us look bad.
Exactly. So, Michael, what's another game that, again, from such a list of 50 games that were reviewed by Mobile Accessible Games this year, which, again, for those who don't know, it's not necessarily all new games. I try to cover new games that come out, this year, and I try to put them into the rotation. But, there's games that might be, a year old or 5 years old. It's just, I've gotten around to finding it and reviewing it. So the 50 games
I've
that
got
we're
one.
talking about are ones that Mobile Accessible Games has reviewed this year. So any ones
Okay.
that jumped off the list for you?
Oh, this one's the best. And you mentioned to me first, Jess, you've got to give this one a try. So that's Empire's Order.
Oh,
That one is fantastic. It's a great card strategy roguelike.
Oh, I did play some of that. Yeah, Mr.
Oh,
Steinkamp got me hooked on that for a while.
oh man. You got to keep playing, Jess. It keeps getting better and better and better. It's so
I'm
deep. I just had
I'm
a
really bad at it.
brain geek out with Aaron. I think me and Aaron, we talked about it. Well, it was like 2 hours we talked about
yeah, the
Empire's
short.
Order.
Yeah.
We're wasting content, Aaron. You, me, and Jess, we need to put this
Well, that's
stuff
because I
on
just call you
stream or
randomly.
something.
Yeah,
You
those are
call me
off the cuff conversations.
randomly.
Every time we get on the phone, I should just record just in case it's good
We
content.
should. We lost good material. I threw some good
I was,
lines. You
I
threw
was
some
it.
good bylines out.
Oh,
So
I would
I
just
I
get
have
on
never
the
been I've never been like a card building game player
me
until
neither.
the first time I really got into it was and Jesse, I don't know if you played this on the console, but played the game Gwent from Witcher 3.
Mm, I couldn't
So
see the cards well enough.
all right, so in Witcher 3 in game you have a card game called Gwent, and that's the first time I really did a card building, builder type of game, and really enjoyed that. And so I've been more open when I see one to explore it and give it a try. And so the great thing about Empire's Order, which I was telling Michael the other day, is in the early part of the game, you build a certain way. You basically build like mining cards that each time you mine, it creates overheat. And if you get too much overheat, the ability might blow up. But you think that's the way to build and be successful. And early on, it kind of is just because that's all you have access to,
Hmm.
or the majority of what you have access to. But when you are really wanting to get to the higher levels, to get through 20 seasons, which is kind of the goal, um, you build no mining cards. You build kind of like these cards that just create a spiral loop that feed off of each other and just ratchet things up really really quickly, and you can't ratchet up quickly enough without causing some serious inflation and damage with the way you normally start, which is building drill cards and mining cards. And so it really kind of the game changes. Like you play a certain way going through seasons 1 through 10, and then when you're trying to get to 10, 11 to 20, you play that game in a completely different way to
Hmm.
really be able to get there. And that's what excites me. And that's we were also talking about this new game, Jesse. I don't know if you saw, if you like card building games at all. There's a game coming that came out, and I'll be reviewing at the beginning of 2024 called I say Conjuring is what I assume it
It's
is.
Conjuring.
Yeah,
Yeah,
CON.
Mhm.
I have it both on my phone and I got the Steam version.
Yeah,
And I have not taken a look at it yet, but again, that's that's one of the next ones on my list.
oh, it's
You're gonna
great.
like it.
Yeah, it,
It's
it is
sweet.
great in that everything is randomly generated from the cards thing. So each time you play, depending on the cards you get, you start building a deck kind of unique for that play through. And the next time you play, well, you might build a completely different deck because you're not getting the
Hmm.
cards that kind of match up together, right? So each time you play through is different, which is great. And then you unlock characters that each have different skill sets, and it really drastically changes how you play the game. I mean, completely different. So each time you unlock a character, it's like unlocking a completely new card building game with completely different rules and
Hmm.
completely different kind of cards and just a completely different way that you play the game. I mean, it's really been exciting to it's not just like kind of tweaking on the sidelines, on the edges. It's really drastically changing the fundamental structure of the game when you unlock
Well,
these new characters.
and that's one thing that I've really found interesting over the past couple of years, 2, 3 years, I would say, is that there's generally genres that I've largely avoided in the past because there's been, a lot of games that have come out for visual players, card battling being one of them, especially a lot of, older RPGs that just have novels of text in them. I just kind of avoided those because I'm like, I don't have the patience to slowly try to struggle to read through all that nonsense, or see the cards and the numbers and the stats and compare everything, or even something like Diablo. Um, but as we get, you get these like card battlers, the couple that you had mentioned, I played, I'm hoping that it comes back native. I'm kind of waiting for it to come back natively into their app without a mod because they're working on it. But Hearthstone
So
was one of the first card battlers that I got into a little bit. Very cool game. But things like that, so even some of these, like I said, text RPGs where you got a lot of these deep mechanics and different things. Um, but I found that it's like, oh, it's like I do, I previously I would say that I really didn't enjoy those types of games. But what I'm finding is that I'm because I'll play a little bit of everything and anything. But the games that I would typically avoid and would say that I really didn't like, I find that I'm more open to over the last couple of years because developers are actually making them, accessible because text to speech or whatever accessibility feature thing that it has just, I get to play the game and get the challenge of the game and not the challenge of struggling to play it. So,
yeah, like if you had because there's quite a few great text adventure RPG type of games that are out there. Um, would you, if you were doing those on your mobile phone, would you like try to be like, oh well, I want the font to be bigger and bolder so that I can read it with my own two eyes, or you say, why struggle that? Let me just have, is the
oh no, give
accessibility
me
good
text
enough
to
to?
speech.
Okay,
Give me
yeah,
text to speech anytime, every time, wherever possible. Whether it's a text adventure, going through your inventory and like Diablo 4, all the stats and everything. Like, no, give me text to speech every time. And there's, like I said, I know you guys aren't into PC, but man, you really should, because there's a couple of doozies that I've covered lately. I gotta remember
I'm
what the heck
working on
they
it.
were,
I'm working on
because
it.
there's been there's one that it's currently in development. He's really focusing on accessibility. I've been talking to that developer on Twitter/X a little bit. And then there's another one that I played there's one called Upheaval that's really good, and I just don't have time to sink into it because it is super deep.
It
I,
There's a
I
sounds
would
couple
very
like
of
to,
immersive.
yeah, I would like to do more computer stuff. I did a little bit of Alter Ian on the computer,
okay.
um, which is kind of like a mud fantasy game, um, and it just was kind of like, I don't know. Again, I don't know how to explain it. It was kind of like hard for me to really grasp the overall world and where I was going. And I don't know if that is I'm still stuck kind of thinking in a visual standpoint. So I was
Hmm.
like, well, wait, is it to the north or east or west? Instead of using maybe some different cues. And I don't even know if a sighted person, if there are any visual cues in that game, or if it's all just kind of text, and they're actually in the same boat I am, trying to figure out where things are. But I was getting a little overwhelmed as I kind of explored more and more because it's a pretty big, huge world of like, wait, where was that? I don't even know. How do I even find that town that I once was? Because I don't have a map that would be
Mm.
like, oh, there it is. Um, so I was getting a little overwhelmed in that game, but I would like to get in. You know, I like games that are you could really deep dive. Like my games were Fallout and Skyrim. Back when I
Oh
was
yeah.
cited. And Witcher 3, and like those are the games I like that are really you're going to spend I played Fallout
Hmm.
3 for a year. That's all I played. Just every time
Same.
just played Fallout 3 for a year all the time.
Oblivion.
Yeah, didn't do anything else. And I like really getting deep diving into things like that. Those are the type of games I want. And I think you're going to probably get that experience a little bit more on the computer than you are going to get it on your mobile phone. But there's things that kind of touch a bit on it, like Eldrum Red Tide has a little bit of it. It's just I could have spent
Red Tide's deep.
yeah, but I could even spend like quadruple the amount of time in that world. I was loving
Hmm.
it, but it's only so big on the phone. I would love to see that thing be even huger because I just love
Yeah,
everything about
and
it.
and like, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I am really getting into some of these really deeper text-based games that are really fun, and there's a lot of like variety. There's a lot of depth that you can get. But like you said, still having some usable vision. The thing when I start playing a lot of these text-based games, like I miss the whole like I like more sort of or like real-time exploration. You take Elder Scrolls Oblivion or you take Fallout, and you're not just reading a bunch of text. You're going through an open world and you're exploring Washington, D.C., or you're like, oh, I came across this broken bridge and there's a dude underneath it, and he's got some quest, and then I go over here and there's some super mutants that are, and it's RPG, but it's a little bit more actiony and like a little
And exploration.
skill based, I would say.
Yeah. And also like world building. Particularly, I don't know if you got to play Fallout 4, but like, you get to
Yes, I
build
did.
and you get to build your base and, make your homestead, whatever way that you want it to be with. So you had world building, you had exploration, you had shooting, first person shooting, you had quests and RPG mechanic. Like, yeah, that is my type.
Yeah, that's why I was so disappointed, because I know that I had heard that Bethesda was working on, hopefully starting to look at accessibility more. And there's a couple niceties in there, but like
What, Starfield? Is that what you're talking about?
Starfield, I was so looking forward to that game, and some of it I really like, but I bounced off of it pretty quickly because it was just, I don't know. I mean, some of it was accessibility reasons, and some of it was just, I don't know. They really didn't change a whole lot, and it just didn't hook me in the way I was hoping. Because yeah, it was like an Elder Scrolls game or a Fallout game in space. Yeah.
You know what? So, have you fooled around at all with um, Be My Eyes describing photos to you?
Yes, I have. I've
Okay.
done 4 videos on that app on my channel, and I've covered it like different ways. Like I've covered it in using your camera, I've used it for existing photos, and then I did a video on using it for like graphical things like charts and graphs and things like that.
All right. So
Yep.
for those people who no, I mean, so with Be My Eyes, you can take a photo that you have on your phone, let's just say, and you're basically asking AI to describe it, and it does an amazing job. I mean, just
Phenomenal.
the detail is insane.
It
Uh,
does.
and to me, it's been a game changer. Like, I'm on a text, chain with a bunch of friends, and they'll send photos around, and
Oh yeah.
I just kind of like, all right, from the context clues, I can tell that's a picture of whatever from what they're texting about. But now I can just pull it up and just have it describe me, and then I can actually comment on the photo as opposed to just
And
have
even
no
as a
idea.
low vision user, I found it extremely helpful for that type of very thing. I
Yeah.
mean, stuff from my job or a social media conversation, just long tap on an image and share it to the app, and it's been like I've been in the assistive technology field for many years. I've seen tons of different technology go in and out, and I'm not trying to say it to be mean, but it's like it's kind of a little bit harder to impress me because I've seen so many
Yeah,
different
sure.
things. But man, like when I got into that beta for Be My AI, I'm like,
Yeah.
this is cool. Not
So
gonna lie.
so picture this with me, right? Because this is what I'm saying or thinking. You're playing Fallout, right? You're completely blind, right? And you're trying to play that game. I think with two simple things, you can suddenly do some amazing stuff, or maybe three things. One, if you remember, they had a feature called Vans, which was like virtual assistant navigation system,
Yeah.
which was a perk you could get. And what that perk did is whatever quest you had, it put a yellow line on the ground to take you to that quest, right?
Oh, that was
So
clairvoyance.
I think it was called Clairvoyance in Skyrim.
Yep.
In
Yeah.
Fallout, it's
Vats
called
was
Vans.
the little slow-mo posy thing where you
Right. That's
target
was slow mo fighting,
body
and
parts.
Band was the
Okay.
virtual assistant navigation system, which put the yellow thing on the ground. And you're right, it's clairvoyance if you were playing Skyrim, so same
Yep.
concept. So first off, you have that. So I put that on, and now if I'm walking on that yellow line, give me a solid tone. If I start walking away from it, start giving a beeping sound that starts getting farther and farther away. So like if I'm on it, it's like
Yeah.
I'm getting away from it, it starts going.
And
Kind of
that's
like Purple
exactly
Friday. Is that
I
what
have
Purple
been,
Friday does?
Yeah,
yeah,
sort of.
I've been actually like, I can't really talk about it due to NDA and stuff, but I've been in a couple of like consulting and like workshop type of gigs over the last year or two. And those are the type of exactly for the type of games. And like, you guys have this visual for being able to track quests like that. And that's
Yeah,
what I've been advocating for so hard, is to say, you've got it already visually. Now just you could spin the camera toward the direction of the line, give us
right,
some audio cues, like just like
right.
The Last of Us
Yeah,
does.
yeah, like
Yes,
auto
those
snap
are
to
the
the
exact
auto
things I
snap into
have
the
been.
line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so if you started going off, you could just, tap a button and you would be
Yep.
on the line again,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
Now, so that's one, right? So now I can get to the quest. But with this, AI description, give me a button where I could tap the button and then just let AI describe like, oh, there's a bridge there and there's a building, to your right, and just have it at on demand describe to me what it is, is actually on screen.
Well,
And
and
that,
what I could see doing that is either having like either an NVDA add-on in the background, or even as Microsoft, they do their Seeing AI and things. If they were to put that not just on mobile, but they were to put that type of thing in Windows, and I could just hold like, I don't know, I mean, this is making things up, but like Windows D for describe or something, and then
right,
just no matter what app you're in, if you, in this case, you'd be, you happen
in a
to be in
video
a
game, yeah,
game,
right.
it would just
Yeah.
describe immediately what's on the screen.
Right. And then, third thing, which they already do, is just have like auto assist on aiming, and to shoot at something. Or if you're doing Fallout, just put it in VATS, and then you can slowly go be like, oh, this is a headshot at
Hmm.
87%, and go and do that. Um,
And
and suddenly, with VATS, bands with
mhm.
a sound tonal, whether I'm on it or not, and auto snap to bands, and then press a button to auto describe what I'm looking at, suddenly I can play Fallout.
And I want to do a kind of a cheap plug on a similar line. He keeps adding to it more and more, and it's been one of my highlights this year. And I know last year we talked about the Toby accessibility mod for Doom,
Mhm.
and this year one of the things that he's added, like because version 6.0, 6.1 is out now, and he's working on version 7. But one of the coolest things that he did is, because before you had a targeting system where if you moved, if you aimed left and right, you would hear a targeting beep when there was something that you could shoot in front of you. But the problem is the enemies didn't do constant call outs. They would do the initial, but then the only way that you would kind of be able to target it is you would hear them shooting you.
Right.
But he added additional sounds now. So like if a zombie is coming at you, or if a pinky demon's coming at you, like the pinky does this constant growl. So you can literally spin around really quickly and go, I hear you, little bugger. And then you
Right.
just target them, shoot them, boom. So you don't even have to rely on auto aim,
Right. Nice.
because you get more constant or reoccurring audio in the environment of the enemies.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Feels like they
Uh,
should have more feedback. You're talking about having the reticule kind of like go over an enemy. You get that kind of like feedback from the AI that tells you, hey, you've just gone over this creature. You've just uh, gone over a bridge. Kind of adding a combination of the reticule kind of giving you feedback with virtual information spoken to you verbally as a blind person, and also getting information back with haptic feedback, which is so
yes.
underused and it's completely accessible. Throw in that also the fact that that haptic feedback, as is used in Purple Friday, really well done. Not very well, not mentioned very much by a lot of
Yeah,
folks, but that's great. That haptic feedback in Purple Friday, I
it's neat.
wasn't terribly into the game, but it is neat. It is fun. I did
So,
like
so
that. I
Michael,
feel like more games should do that. Yeah.
Michael, Purple Friday, again, a game that came out this year on mobile game. Why don't you just tell people a little bit about that? For those who are looking for games. What is
Know a
Purple Friday?
little. It's not my usual genre. Y'all know I'm into strategy and card games and RPGs and adventure games. But Purple Friday is kind of in between. It's an adventure game, but it's also a virtual reality game. That's about as close as I feel I can get to playing a virtual reality game, something similar to a Sonar Islands, but a little bit more linear. And it's kind of a game where you get a lot of intense ambient sound and surround sound. And if you put on a set of really good headphones, you're there. It's that good. It's very, very good. I would have to say it's the spiritual successor of, say, a Sonar Islands game, but not quite as fully realized as Sonar Island is. And you basically walk around, you look for little things to interact with, and it's very simple. You pick up an item, it gives you an options of what you can do with the item. You interact with the item, you manipulate the item, you complete the little quest, and you put the item down and you move on to something else.
Or pick it
Meanwhile,
up and then unlock, the cabinet with the key that you found over at that other
exactly.
place.
Exactly. And then the AI speaking to you in many different voices. So it's not this generic kind of like voiceover voice. And I'm cool with the voiceover voice. It's like listening to an audible book. And it's fine. I'm okay with voiceover voices, but I kind of like these personalized real life people voices. When they're responding to you based on what you're doing, you're just farther in the game. You're deeper in the game. Like Jesse said, you're sinking deeper into the game the more that they're pinpointing your interaction within the interface. And that's what Purple Friday kind of does. Again, I do hope the developer continues, because what they've done is innovative and it is neat and it's fun and it has a lot of interactivity. With the haptic feedback, with the audio cues, with the sound and surround sound structure inside of the game itself, it's kind of taken mobile games to the next level. I'd like to see more RPG based games utilize this system, because it's incredibly adept at making you feel like you're inside of the game.
Let me ask you this question. You mentioned Sonar Islands, which is a game that I've done a little bit in, but I have not reviewed that, not because it's not a game worth reviewing. It is, but its subscription model is something that I am just not willing to, get signed up for. And then how do I figure out how to cancel it? Is it going to be easy or hard? I just don't like signing up for something unless I know I'm going to keep it, because they always make it super difficult to
Well,
unsubscribe to
I'm
things.
kind
It's
of,
pretty easy to
it's,
unsubscribe. You just do it under your
yes.
subscriptions under settings.
On
And I
your
work with that developer. We worked together. I did a Gamma review when the game first came out, and I worked with the developer, and they offered me an incredible number of freebies. I would encourage you, Aaron, to reach out to the developer. He's incredibly kind. Again, I think he's EU, and he's great, and he will give you whatever you need to review the game for free. I don't want to speak for him, but I have to say he was incredibly generous with me, and he even put one of my reviews for what my channel was called, New Def Gaming at the time. He put it on his website, and it's still there. My review for his game, the first review of the first version of his game, his version 1.0, is still on his website, and he's been very respectful of the blind and visually impaired community. He's taken advice. He takes feedback very well. He's very gracious, very well spoken, very kind person, and very generous. And you can get out of his subscriptions pretty easily, as Jesse said, by simply going to your subscription and saying, I don't want it anymore. Boom, you're out. And his subscription model is the same price as the Lost Vault subscription model. It's basically, if you want to pay for a whole year, I think it's under $20-$30. If you want to pay per month and give it a try, think about it as getting a very inexpensive, visually impaired, accessible game. It's about $3, and you can play it for a month and see if you like it. If it's your cup of tea, maybe you continue. If it's not your cup of tea, maybe you just unsubscribe and you're done. And it's $3. You've donated to an excellent developer, and you've pretty much got your review right then and there. And trust me, when you get into Sonar Islands, and there's a whole community of folks who are really into Sonar Islands. Let me tell you something. There are some folks who play that thing every day for 4 or 5 hours a day. It's pretty strong. It's pretty strong. It's good.
Now
Yeah, and
you mentioned Lost Vault with a subscription. Is that new? I don't remember them having them.
Oh no, Lost Vault has a subscription. It's $3 and you get a bunch of freebies. Well, let me throw my little cheapie on Lost Vault. So Lost Vault is
But when you say subscription, you mean like $3 a month?
Yeah, it's $3 a month for Lost Vault has a subscription. It gives you a bunch of freebies, gives you You don't have to watch commercials. So as you remember, you and I interviewed the developer of Lost Vault,
Yeah.
and
I don't remember at
he
that time
put
it having subscriptions.
it didn't have a subscription, and then he put it in there after the
Okay.
feedback, and he's doing really good with the game because he's self-supporting and he's taking care of things. But he also made it so that if you subscribe to the game, you do not have to watch the commercials. It's just 2 swipes and a double tap and you're out of the commercial, and it doesn't take over your whole screen. It doesn't just pop a link internally. The user interface doesn't get all wonky. It's just real quick. If you pay for the subscription, and mind you, if you don't want to pay for the subscription, the commercial only lasts for like 4 seconds. And in some situations, it's just a static screenshot. So the commercial's really there for those who are sighted. So if you are visually impaired, you can just swipe through the commercial really quickly, and then it goes a long way to supporting the developer. And
With
it's
with
really
Lost Vault
good.
with its subscription model, because it sounds like, because I think I ended playing right around the time that we did that interview, so I haven't been in it, and I noticed that you kicked me out of our clan. So
Yeah,
uh,
well, then you need to get your butt in there and start playing.
but
Me and Jesse, right, Jess? We're still there rocking.
wait, Jesse's in your
Get your
clan?
low level character leveled up
Oh,
here.
no, no,
Yeah,
no,
I've
I feel
been
left out.
messing around with it. I don't know. I didn't pay for the subscription, but I know I supported him. I bought something, and I don't get ads at all ever. So I don't know what I did, but I know I bought something,
I did a
and
one-time purchase thing, and it got me extra backpack spots and stuff like that. But I didn't
yeah,
have
no,
I didn't have a
I never see ads in that game.
I did not pay a monthly subscription at the time I did. I don't know if that's new, but
But you can
so what
get
new
the
did he add?
subscription.
Did he add like where you can get even more backpack space and
Yes,
more?
and you can also infinitely run missions. So you have these missions on the Explore tab. And what he really did was really awesome. He basically took lots of elements of a game in an RPG where you've got adventuring, you've got a little bit of RNG, and you've got some PvP. So on the adventuring part of the game, he made it so that if you paid a subscription, you didn't have to wait for your caravan to come back. You could just run it endlessly, and you didn't get a cooldown on it. He removed the cooldown for subscription owners, which means they get to bring in much more resources and they're making more money. On top of that, he actually gave you more space in your backpack. He gave you more ability to make funds. He made it so that you could get more daily bonus openings of items and treasures,
Do you get
but
more
he
water?
didn't make it paid. I do not believe. Okay, so that's where. Okay, so Camille Rakoski is the developer, and you and I both had a conversation. And Jesse, you'll probably want to. I don't know if you've ever reviewed Lost Fault on your channel or Legally
Oh,
Cited.
I've covered it.
Okay, yeah. So Camille does not like PDW. So for those of you who don't know PDW, play pay to win. He doesn't like it. He's very
I
much
hate it.
against it. And Jesse, I know you hate it. Most people hate it. PDW is the bane of most games. It makes it repetitive. It makes it so that you're just a little hamster on the wheel, and you just gotta, you just keep dumping money into it. And I can tell you, there was a game I used to play a long time ago when I worked for the United States Postal Service, and there was a game I used to dump thousands of dollars in every year. And where did that game
Oof.
go? Where did it get me? It's gone. I don't play it anymore. But I used to dump thousands of dollars into that game, and it was a mobile game. And my friends and me all played it. We were into that game. And one of the predecessors of games like Hustle Castle, which I covered on my channel, it's not an accessible game, Hustle Castle, though, folks. Though you see my face on a lot of their material, it's not an accessible game. I mean, you can start the intro, but it won't let you play the game really successfully. I don't know why they don't make it accessible, because it's pretty good game that could be easily converted into some accessible format. But so Camille doesn't like giving people pay to win kind of options. If it even looks a little bit like you could pay to win, like some guy could go ahead and drop $100 and get 100 water bottles, he's not going to allow it. And I do believe it does hurt his bottom line, but who am I to say what he should do? He's a very talented like rich in
Well,
personality and kindness
yeah.
kind of person.
You
And
got
what
to
he
be
decides to
careful
do with
on
his game
that.
is his business.
Yeah, and it would,
Mhm.
it's one thing if it's a single player type of game and you want to spend money because it's just you, but that game has player versus player aspects to it, and
Right, right.
then it would be unfair of like I'm trying to compete against somebody who just can drop some money on it.
Mhm.
Well, if I want to wipe you, if I want to wipe your, if I don't want to wipe you out, Aaron, because you got your level 55 character that you never play in our clan. I meant to say, I mean the character that you're just gamefully employing. I'm just saying, if I want to wipe you out and I want to spend $50 on some water bottles, then I should be able to do it because it goes to the developer and it goes to the rest of the community. I just feel developers have been making money and losing money, and we're not there when they lose money. So why are we preventing them from making money? If they're being reasonable and responsible in our community, like I'm not looking for predatory practices. Obviously, we've all been victims of predatory practices, pay to win models, just in-app purchases that got out of control that offer too much for players to buy their way to the end. I don't want that. But I want to say if a developer can make a few hundred extra bucks in a year from a person who's really gainfully employed in one of their apps, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Because that
Well,
player is
yeah,
like,
as long
hey,
as
I
you're
got a
yeah,
little
well,
small
as
money.
long as you're not, he's not able to do that at the detriment of others. So like I like it has a very minor store. There's not actually very much in its
It's
in-app
not even really a
purchases.
store.
Right.
It's not,
It
there's, you can't overbuy anybody.
right.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's barely anything in the store, and it's a single player game, right? Like I'm not competing against you and beating you up or taking anything from you, right? It's just me playing the game.
Oh
Um,
yeah, you can't compete with me anyway. I'm
right.
just too good.
Right, exactly. But I was telling him, I was like, why not put in there, uh, you know, potions to get extra XP, for 2 hours, and charge somebody for 5 of those potions 99 cents. Like,
Exactly.
if I want to do that and I want to spend my money, it's not hurting anybody else if I do that, and I totally don't have to do it. I've never had to pay for that because whenever I'm reviewing a game, I don't pay for anything that gets things done faster because I want to know what the experience is going to be for the average person playing. So I don't actually pay for anything or buy anything until I'm done my review, and then I'll go and do things. But I was like, you can add so much more stuff into the store. Just make it that you can also get it if you play the game. Like, don't put a weapon. Oh, you can get the special weapon and only in the store for $3.99. You can put it in there for $3.99 as long as I can also manage to get it just playing the game and doing things in the game and getting it. That
Right.
then
And
that's
just
fine.
make it take longer. And again, this is what the WoW players have a big problem with. You can get gold from illegal sources, or you can get gold from the company itself. I think it's, what are they, Microsoft, Activision. So you can get gold from them, or you can get gold from illegal sources. So they prefer you get money from them. But there's no reason you have to ever buy gold in WoW. Just log in every day and just wander around killing stuff, and you'll get all the gold you need. Same thing goes for COD, right? I mean, I know you both are big Call of Duty fans. You don't need to buy any of that stuff. Just keep playing and flipping it and just getting your perks up, just blasting, getting headshots, and eventually you're going to unlock everything that you need, right?
Well, again, those things, WoW and Call of Duty, it just gets a little dicey when uh, me being super powerful means I can kill you, who is not super powerful because you did not pay a lot of money.
Right.
Although, if it's, oh, I can become super powerful in Call of Duty, the single player mode, well, then fine. Let me do that. What does it matter? It doesn't hurt you, Michael. I'm not, being able to just constantly drop bombs on you and not let you be able to, get anywhere because I'm just so powerful because I had $100 to spend on getting special weapons. But if I want to have those special weapons in the single player mode, then yeah, feel free to let that happen. You know what I mean?
I
That's
see.
good. More
Let the
monetization. I was trying.
players.
I was literally saying to this guy, the developer, I was like, you know, you got to put more in there. You got to monetize this more. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a great game, and there's so much more you could put in that store. It's not going to hurt anybody. It's just there. If somebody wants to spend the money, they can. If they don't want to spend the money, they don't have to. But you got to put more in that store. You got to monetize this
Why
more.
are they under monetizing games? Like, I'm sorry. I mean, I understand this is our community, but I don't want developers who think blind and visually impaired people don't have a few bucks jingling around in their pocket. We've got a few coins, jingling around in there, and we can afford to drop $1. We can afford to drop 5. And if we can't, then we play the game out in a linear fashion and complete it that way. We can go either way, but the under monetization of games for developers who are making games for the blind and visually impaired, they're not only hurting themselves, but they're hurting the visually diverse people who are sighted, who can just basically drop a little bit more money into it. Let those folks drop money into the game because it helps you. It pays your bottom line. Your kids can go to college. Your dog can go to the vet. You can take care of your partner's needs. But if you start thinking, hey, and let me tell you something. I'm going to say something because Charlie Seligman is a sweetheart. And that dude will basically, in a rainstorm, give you his umbrella and walk home. That's how he is. But the thing is, he puts hundreds and thousands of hours into the coding of his game over very like minute things, minutia, basically. And the people are like, oh, I don't like this wording. It kind of pushes in on this one. And the word code kind of pushes close to fire. And he'll go in and fix that. He'll actually go in there and put a microsecond pause to fix that. He's not getting paid for that. He's not getting monetized for that. And the thing is with Charlie Seligman, he'll never say, hey, that actually is a lot of coding time I'm spending fixing that. As a blind person, you don't like how that sounds with voiceover, but he will go in there and fix that. Now, the problem is his community is wonderful. They're awesome, but they're also going to be demanding that kind of attention every single time. And the minute he brings out new content, he's already going to be debugging that for 2 years because and he's not going to get paid properly for all that work. So my thing is, let's go ahead and put in things that a person who might have a few coins jingling around in their pocket can afford to pay for. So the developer is getting a little feed money. And then they can go ahead and hire somebody to go in there and fix the microsecond pauses for voiceover. Or better yet, hire Jesse to come in and do some active consulting, and he'll tell you what you need to do to fix it. Let's put the money, let's put the people who know the games and who have the situation where they understand the disability into that community. We're not in those communities deep enough. Like a lot of you are in there. There's a lot of folks in our community that are deep in it and have incredible intelligence. They're being very underutilized because they could get in there and fix your problem very quickly. They used to respect that, and developers would say, hey, Jesse, I need you to come in. I need you to come over here to San Jose. I need you to check this thing out, and let's get this thing figured out. Like, where are those companies again? They're kind of like, stop asking for that input from those in our community to come in and test these items. We're not asking for a lot either. We're not like saying, hey, yeah, you got to pay me a little bit of, a bit of money. You've got to give me some heavy duty this. I mean, we're not asking for a whole lot. We're just saying, let us weigh in and work on these problems with you. Let us be a partner with you and let us fix some of these issues with you.
Jesse, what are your thoughts around that? I mean, you're probably of the three of us, you're a little bit more in the room when it happens on some of these things. Do you see there is more outreach on that, less outreach, the same as no reach outreach?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it depends. It depends on the game. It kind of depends on the developer. I've had developers reach out to me. I've reached out to some developers, mobile developers, or even especially indie game developers, because they're more able to, they don't have to go through all the bureaucratic red tape just to be able to try to do something. So, we have some luck that way, reaching out via email, social media, things like that. But, as far as like the monetization stuff goes, like, I think, I guess maybe I'm more like old school where, I kind of just miss like, have like either a time limited or like some of the RPGs where you get like a chapter for free and then you pay
Mhm.
for the rest of the
Yeah,
story.
I like
I
that.
I like that a lot. I'm not personally, I'm not as much of a fan of I don't like buying consumable items. Like I like buying like, oh, if I pay for this, I unlock I unlock ad free permanently, or I get the rest of the story, or I get some major perk, I get some major thing, but I don't like literally I pay, let's say I pay $5, I get a bunch of potions or I get a bunch of gold, and then I go into the in-game store and I convert, because it's, they take the real money and they put it into gems or gold or whatever doubloons, whatever you want to call, whatever currency you want to call it. But it's like, oh, I can literally just blow that $5 like in like one or two clicks.
Right.
And then it's gone, 5 minutes later. Not, it's kind of like the coffee example. You have 10 minutes of that coffee, you enjoy it, and well, now it's gone. Whereas if I pay for, like expansions of the game, like, oh, hey, I added a new chapter, go ahead and because we totally made this new chapter, we added a new gameplay zone, or, oh, it was a single player game, but now we have, like some sort of player versus player arena or something, like, oh, sure, like I'll pay for that kind of stuff, but I don't really like paying for consumable
I see what you're saying.
resources. I
Yeah, I mean,
don't,
conceptually, what you could do too is just be like, oh, in the store, you can pay for a certificate of crafting, and now you can craft 10% faster than you could before. And then that's just a
sure,
permanent,
sure, and it's like a
it,
permanent thing,
right,
like,
yeah.
sure, right,
But,
right, yeah, but
but
if
make that
like a
available for me if I want
finite,
to do that.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, like a finite currency, I buy these three potions and then 2 minutes later they're gone. I'm
Right.
not into that.
I'm
You
very
want a
big into,
one-time deal, right, Jesse?
yeah,
You
yeah.
want
Well,
something
yeah,
that's
like a one
unlocked.
time, you can do a one time deal more than once. You can say, chapter two comes out, okay, I'll pay for chapter two. Well, chapter three and four came out, okay, well, now I'll pay a little bit more,
Yeah, well,
you know?
I like very much like, to your point, let's say there's something that's like 5 chapters long, on a text RPG or something like that. I mean, I really like the people who say, you know what, I'm going to give you the first 2 chapters for free. And, by
Hmm.
the end of chapter two, you're going to know if this is your type of game or not. And if it's your
Exactly.
type of game, pay me $2.99 for the rest of the story. And that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah, no
Um,
problem with that. I
you
mean,
got to
for
see it.
regular visual games, like there's a lot of games where it's like they have the main game and then they'll do like a seasonal thing, or they'll do
Right.
like there's this just ridiculous game. It's just a relaxing little I use it when I listen to podcasts or audiobooks. There's this kind of chill game called Power Wash Simulator, and it's like, oh, you play through the whole campaign and then you get like they've done some theme packs, like, oh, you want to clean some stuff from Tomb Raider or Final Fantasy or Back to the Future just recently came out. So like you're like power washing the DeLorean or the you know just stuff like
That
that.
sounds
And it's like,
fun.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just like it's a chill thing. I just crank on an audiobook, and so, yeah, I'm paying, but now I have access to that Back to the Future content in for
Permanently.
forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have no problem paying for stuff like that.
You bring up a good point about one-time purchasing and not just getting consumables. I think that's a very
Yeah.
solid structure to think
I'm
about
against
when
consumable purchase.
yeah. And again, if you like consumable purchases, there's nothing wrong with it, folks.
Right.
But if you are looking for something more along the classic line of how games were originally designed, you paid for content and then you got that content forever. And
Right.
you got to keep building up that content. So for
Hmm.
instance, I mean, go back to comic books. You'd buy a comic book and you got a lot of story in that one comic book. But if you wanted to know what Magneto did later, you had to go ahead and purchase
Hmm.
that particular comic book in that series to find out why Magneto disappeared for 3 or 4 panels. You had to go ahead and if you didn't care what Magneto did, you didn't have to go buy that particular comic book because maybe you didn't want to read in that particular group, or you didn't want to read a crossover from DC. You didn't have to pay for that comic book.
Hmm.
If you wanted to know what the Batman was doing, if you wanted to know what Harley Quinn was doing, you can go ahead and read their respective stories. And I think monetization should be responsible. Obviously, if you're going to give out consumables, there should be something that makes sure that the player is just not gambling to get ahead, but that they're putting something solid into the game, whether they're growing their character. And I think that's where we could cross over a little bit to something that's more one time and permanent, where the player is paying for something like a water bottle in Lost Vault. Now, I've always felt there's no really issue with paying for a water bottle, but make it so that there is some limit to how many you can get, or make it so that it helps build up your character, but also make it so that other things in the game allow you to do the same thing. Like Aaron said, as long as a person who doesn't have any money can do the same thing by having skin in the game from interaction. Make it so that the person isn't just buying their way to win. And then that's the whole PDW model, right? You don't have to wait. You can win now. Because if you got $1,000, you can go ahead and wipe everybody out because you're now level gazillion. And now no one can stand up against you. And we don't, that's not a favorable thing, right? We want to be able to play a game. We want to feel that we've accomplished something from the hard work we put into the game. And I want to say that when I'm done playing a character to level 100 or to level 1000 in Sortie Quest, no, well, Sortie Quest is level 500, right? I want to say that when I've gotten to those max levels, that my monetization input has been limited. Like maybe I bought a cute pet, or maybe I bought something that allowed me to do a
But
little
that
bit
was
more
by
farming
but that
each
was by
day
choice. Yeah, that's by choice.
by choice.
And a
And
lot of
it didn't,
companies
yeah.
now,
Mhm.
are really they've kind of had to back away from it because there's been a lot of pushback in mainstream games. And because you got to remember, mobile is that's their whole monetization strategy. But then your PC and console games, you pay full price for a game, and then you have the season pass, and then you have the DLC, and then you have the cosmetics. And so they've kind of tried to limit it more toward, again, it's not giving you a gameplay advantage, but if you want to have a certain skin for your weapon, that make it look a certain way, you want to buy a character that doesn't have any impact on your gameplay, but instead of looking like the stock character, you buy a different outfit, or you buy even a different character, like, oh, Fortnite, I want to be RoboCop, or I want to
Right.
be whoever. It doesn't have any impact in gameplay, it's just your character looks different.
Right.
Should
Brave
should
Brain is doing something like you mentioned. Brave Brain has all these avatars and they cost you in-game currency. But if you're out of coins, you can also spend a little bit of real
Right.
money to get, currency to unlock these avatars. But these avatars do absolutely nothing to the game itself, just makes you look cute. So if you want
Hmm.
to be a little
Yeah,
bit
many
cuter,
many
you could
games do
spend real
that.
money.
Yep.
Jesse, is there any, I know your focus this past year wasn't as much on mobile games, but was there any mobile game that you did spend some time with over the course of 2023?
Yeah, I would say there are probably two, and then later on we can talk about like some of the other highlights. But yeah, as far as mobile games go, I would say probably Planet Life for a little while, um, and then Idle Icta, or
Like,
however you
yeah,
say it.
yeah.
Yeah, and then that I already forgot the name. Oh man, what is wrong with me? That game that
Is
I
it a mobile
mentioned
game?
earlier. The
The
what?
real-time strategy one,
Yeah,
No,
you
the
he
the real time one.
Empire's Order.
No, let me find it again.
you
Um,
had it up. I remember you said you were going to look at it on your phone. But yeah, Ikta, I need to give Ikta a try again. Idle Ikta. Again, I'm gonna check that out. And I'm already starting Conjury up. Aaron, you got me going down a rabbit hole with Conjury. So,
That's a good one.
and appreciate that. I appreciate the tutorial you
Time
gave me.
Crest. Yeah,
Time Quest. Time
Oh
Quest.
yeah, Time Press. Yeah,
I
Time
played
Press.
that a lot this year.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I have more tips for you on Conjury. They'll tell you later today. Just make your life easier.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's been a big help. Again, I needed a little support with that game. I do like it a lot, but I'm a little lost here. Like, what is this stuff on my screen? And I was like, oh, what is this? How do I get this off of the screen? And Aaron came in like he came in like the Batman and just swung in and goes, remove this. You don't have to
It's
fight.
one of the things I was telling it. So Commentary is a very, very accessible game, but you do have to just understand how it's laid out, where things are exactly.
Yep.
And the one thing that I was trying to explain to Michael, and it was kind of hard to explain, and then he did experience it, and then I texted him. I said, because he did a video on it, I said that's exactly what I was talking about. This is why you keep getting lost on the screen. Is as you swipe to the right, you'll get to the last item in the bottom right corner, right, which is like draw a card, and then it'll swipe all the way back up to the top. So it'll jump to the top. But if you're at the top and you try to swipe left to get to the bottom, it doesn't do that. So if you don't understand that you've just moved all the way from the bottom all the way to the top, and you're like, I am lost in the screen. I just keep hearing the same stuff.
And one of the things that I really try to stress when I do a lot of my accessible game videos, especially for iOS, is I use VoiceOver a lot on my phone, and I think it's important to know multiple ways to navigate. And so like swiping is one thing, but I really want to encourage people to also at least have a basic, try to use Explore by Touch a little bit, because even if you don't get to the exact thing you're looking for, it's like, oh, I know the thing that I want is at the bottom. Well, touch near the bottom of the screen somewhere, and then you can flick 2-3 times instead of flicking 20-30 times.
Exactly.
Or Explore by Touch is super important. And
or
even
four finger.
I won't name any names, but I've had like personal, people that I'm friends with or what have you that like I don't do that. I'm like, well, then you'll struggle if you don't,
And you'll go really slow.
Know your tech.
I do some accessibility training for people too, and I tell people, to me, there's 3 tiers of navigation skills on your phone, and you're swiping left and right is tier 1, and if all you know is tier 1, you're going to get frustrated a lot because you're going to, as you said, you're going to swipe 30 times to get to something. Tier 2 is knowing some,
and then they would say, well, and there are certain things that are literally in some apps that I wish maybe they would work with swipes, but there are some things that you would literally have to get to by Explore by Touch. And so if you don't know that, or if you refuse to do it, well, that's kind of on you.
Right. Well, and then there's like, just knowing some gestures that are not as common, like, oh, well, if I 4-finger single tap at the top of the screen, it'll jump right to the top of the screen, or 4-finger single tap at the bottom of the screen, it'll jump to the bottom of the screen, and like understanding some of those gestures, or 3-finger swipe up and down or left and right, and knowing how that's going to move the screen around. So that's, to me, tier 2, which helps you a lot. And then tier 3 is understanding the rotor and going into the rotor and knowing how to navigate by heading or links or form controls and stuff like that. And that'll save you a lot of time too. So you got to know all 3 of those, and if you don't, you are going to struggle, and it's going to be frustrating. And there's games like let's take a Word Voyance, which is basically a Scrabble game. Well, if you don't go in the rotor and turn on vertical navigation, you're going to have to struggle mightily hard with that game.
Well, and even there's a lot of games, if they're on a grid or something,
anything that's
have to be spatial. Like, oh, I have to make a word vertically or horizontally or diagonally. Like, you really want to drag your finger to know spatially where things are, because in those types of games, it's important.
Or put on vertical navigation so that you can not only swipe left and right, but you can swipe up and down from where you are and understand what is directly above me and directly below me. So you got to really understand that.
And if it's direct touch, I call it AKA direct touchy. If you've got a heavy finger like me, direct touchy can be really tough because you can go ahead and yank yourself out of it.
Sure.
And another thing with direct touch is you can actually activate your Switch app just simply by touching the bottom with the new iOS updates. So you've got to spend time, like Jesse mentioned, mapping games out with your fingertip and getting used to the touch you need to navigate through that particular game. You've got to, I don't do accessibility or AT, but what I do is when I really like a game, I take some time to understand the game. I'll sit there and work on the user interface. I'll see what's the shortcut. Should I touch the middle of the screen and then swipe? Should I touch the top of the screen? Because
Right.
with direct touch, right, you can't four-finger tap with a lot of voiceover controls, and you
Right.
can't interact with your rotor with direct touch.
That's
So
true.
it turns off all those features.
Yeah.
So you're really going to have to get your direct touch game in line.
In your idle light, I will tell you that swiping up and down is kind of like jumping by headers, and you should know that. It'll save you a lot of time to get to some of the, where your cards are, or where the loot boxes are, or where the end turn is.
Where's my tutorial? Where's my text message tutorial?
Well, I know that's one I forgot.
Yeah, that game
to
is it's surprising because, like I said, I started playing that not very long ago, and I've gotten kind of surprisingly hooked on it. Like, I'll just kind of leave it running in the background or whatever, but like there's so many things that just build off of each other that you kind of have to go back and forth to do. And it's a neat game, but
How
so
far?
that's
So
kind of one of my current games that I've been playing, but I need to finish Planet Life at some point.
Oh, that's a good game. You got to
have you
finish that one.
gotten?
That one
Have you
is so
gotten?
fun.
You got into idle like one of my favorite things. So it in theory it takes place in the Pacific Northwest, and you'll get. Have you got into the place where you can go to the beach and gather clams?
I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I
Okay,
don't even remember. I'm not sure because I know
so one of
I've
the
gone out
levels
to
it's like
Homestead.
yeah, like level 60 gathering. Okay, so you got the gathering skill level 60 of it, I think.
Dang, man, that
You
game's
can
deep.
yeah, it goes to level 99, but at level 60 you can go to the beach and you can gather clams because
Hmm.
you're looking for a pearl. So you'll get a quest to try to find a pearl.
Okay, I
Um,
must have that because I do have that quest.
okay, so if you're high enough level in gathering, then that's where you go. You go to gathering, you go to the beach,
Hmm.
and you gather up a bunch of clams, and then you go and open the
The other
clams
thing
and
that I
try to find
haven't
a pearl.
figured out in
But
that game is, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
what I was just going to say, but in that gathering, it is all based on the tides. So when you go into that gathering at that location,
Oh.
it's going to say, "Oh, it's high tide right now, so you can collect a clam every 42 seconds." And
Hmm.
then when it's low tide,
Nice.
you can collect a clam every 4 seconds. So those tides are actually tied to the actual tides that are happening in Puget Sound or whatever in the Pacific Northwest. They're actually uh, connected to the actual tides that are occurring at that location
Hmm.
at that time. And I thought that was just kind of a cool little.
The
He
one
told
thing
me
I
about
haven't really
that.
figured out is the whole trading thing because it's like I got part of it down, but now I've got these dugout things and an address book, and I don't know what the heck is going on with all that nonsense. I haven't figured that
Yeah,
stuff
it's
out yet.
so the
Like the
dugout.
dugouts.
Yeah, so when you're on somebody at the top of the screen, it says like view dugouts, and you can apply a dugout to three different perks. One is get the person to show up more often. The second is to have them have more items. Like so, instead of coming with 10
Oh,
potions, they'll come with 15 potions. And
right.
the last one is a higher chance that a rare odd item will drop. So like
Gotcha.
if there's if the
Dang.
special potion is a clairvoyance potion, let's just say, well that doesn't
Hmm.
show up all the time, but you increase the chance that it'll show up if
Right.
you
Gotcha.
dug out.
Okay. I wasn't
Now,
because yeah, I didn't understand what the like what even how the dugouts even worked,
yeah, so
and I just
you
haven't put time in to figure it out.
yeah, so for each trader you can apply those three dugouts. And then for each trader that you have, so let's say you're dealing with the weapons trader right now, you could also go at the bottom underneath where you're purchasing all the items and say use dugout, and that'll let you switch one time to somebody else who's in your address book
Oh, gotcha.
that you've given a dugout. So if they don't have a dugout, they won't show up in that list. But if you've given them a
Oh, the
dugout, then
address book.
they'll
Okay.
show up in the address book
Oh, okay.
with you the ability to go visit that person. So let's say you have you know, they show up every 6 hours, let's just say, and
Hmm.
you're 3 hours into the one and you bought everything that you want from this guy, and you're like, oh, I really would
Yeah,
like to
because I
get some
noticed.
potions. You can go to the use dugout, switch to the potion guy, and then the remaining 3 hours will be
Yeah,
with the potion guy.
because I noticed that some people they specialize in like, oh, potion ingredients or
Right,
potions
exactly.
or weapons or
Yeah,
armor.
right, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the whole
Yeah.
dugout.
Okay.
So it was a little confusing at the beginning, but I did figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah, there are definitely I mean, I'm still wrapping my head around like the community stuff. I've been leveling up those things. And yeah, I mean, there's just like you start out pretty straightforward, and then it's like, oh God, there's like 18 different systems building on top of each other
And
to
there's
keep
cool things
track of.
too, like if you're on the skills tab, like the actual, button that says
Hmm.
skills tab, if you press and hold that, it goes into a list that says here's all of the different skills and what level you are in that skill right now.
Yeah,
So
there's
they
a button in the upper on on the quest screen. There's a button in the, I think it's the top left, that does that too.
yeah, probably.
And
What do
there's a
y'all think
skill
about
tree.
doing like say with a Zoom format, all of us with originating audio on? Of course, because we're using voiceover or voice related apps, we just leave originating audio on, but silence our own individual voices and do a little let's play of something like Idle Ecta and just have us all talking and playing it. Like I come in as a new player, you two have been playing it for quite some time, and then you guys, because I'm very fascinated by your conversation about all the things related to where you're at in the game. And we kind of have like a little hour long, like get together play of this game using we could kind of use this format. And like I said, turn originating audio on. Obviously, minimize talking over each other and minimize voiceover going over voiceover, but we could kind of play the game. We can talk about aspects of it and comment about it and just kind of have a round robin. And it kind of creates that kind of streaming kind of gameplay where we're all three of us playing the same game. Most of these games work pretty well, even while, on Zoom, if they're not online games that require a phone connection. I don't know if you two think that that sounds kind of interesting or
No,
that would be
potentially.
fun to try.
I will tell you the thing that I find really useful for Idolica is join the Discord. Um,
Yeah,
that
I
is where
did
I
do that
learned.
finally.
That's where I learned so much about different things and different things that were possible, and even things like I'm like I cannot find where this enemy is, and there's actually a special tab for the big boss battles. There's a special tab in the combat screen called gated locations, and that's where all your boss
Oh, I don't
battles
think
are.
you've even found that yet.
Yeah, so I was like, I cannot find where this person is. Is like, oh, did you go to the boss screen on the combats? I'm like, no, I
Hmm.
didn't know that was there. And then,
I just started that weird, I won 3 times so far, but I just started that weird
oh, the
bear
bear game.
game.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I won three
Um,
times.
so I will tell you this: I was able to win that game 4 times on my own. The
Hmm.
fifth time, I think, particularly from a visual standpoint, is impossible if you do not have vision. Um, it
Mm.
just it's really because you
Yeah,
basically
I've heard
have
a
to.
lot of people have trouble with around five.
Yeah, so you can't do. You have to beat it 5 times to to win the quest.
Yep, yep.
That fifth one, because what you have to do is you have to get the bear to come out, and then you got to back off and see where he goes, and then charge back at him. And you're
Hmm.
going to conceptually not going to get that. That's what you need to do without the visual. But
Oh,
there is on Discord, if you go to spoiler, someone has put a
yeah.
literally play by play. Here's the 31 steps to win level 5,
Oh,
and I
jeez.
had to follow that
Hmm.
to beat level 5
Yeah.
because otherwise
Yep.
it's too much. I could not figure out how to. I was going in circles and circles because I was just kind of charging at him and he just couldn't move around you. You have to get him. You have to basically lure him out and then
Hmm.
fake him out. That's basically what you got to do.
Yep.
But yeah, I had a whole conversation. I've interviewed that developer, and that interview's coming out in January. But I had a whole thing of like,
Oh,
how
cool.
do you code, what the bear is doing and make that work? So he's explaining me that this is what in level 1, this is what the bear is doing. In level 2, this is what the bear is trying to do. And so he
Kind of
explained that.
reminded me, it kind of reminded me of like, I don't remember, there was a checkers game that you could play that was really weighted toward, but it was, I think they called it Fox and Hounds.
Yeah, that's basically what
It's
that is. Yeah,
basically that, except it's
yeah,
on a weirdly shaped, like almost like a,
board. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's the other thing. It's kind of hard to understand what the board is really doing until someone because it's actually a 7 by 7 grid, and you
Yeah, and
may not
there's
understand that from a voice.
diagonals
Yeah,
and
you might not understand that from voiceover. So
Did either of you ever play the Ancient Board Game Collection? It has a lot of strange gridded, boarded kind
um,
of like
uh,
games.
yeah, I have that, and then I tried to like open it up, and I wasn't really understanding it, and I bailed quickly.
what is it? Ancient Board Collection?
Ancient Board Game
Yeah,
Collection,
No, I
yeah.
don't think I have tried
It's
that yet.
Yeah, give it a try. It's got Triple E. It's got a lot of strange different games, games from Aztec era, games from
Huh.
Greece, games
Oh,
from
weird.
France, games from Finland, games from Germany and Russia. So lots of different ancient board games, basically.
Hmm.
Some of the oldest games that have existed throughout time, and a
Neat.
developer actually created a whole series of these games. Mind you, got to throw in that warning. You're going to have to spend some time analyzing the boards. they
Oh, for
are
sure.
they are a little deep. They are a little deep, but they are completely and 100% accessible.
Well, yeah, and that's why, especially for stuff like that, where when I do a video, like if I have some usable vision, so I can try to relay some of the for those types of interfaces, I try to like, here's kind of a rough idea of spatially what's going on here, because yeah,
Yeah.
some of the screens can be more confusing if you have no vision.
So, maybe you've mentioned some of these already, but like Michael, what are you looking forward to as we going into 2024? Just whether it be games
Oh
or
yeah.
accessibility features, what's got you excited?
I'm really excited about the possibility of whether or not I'm going to go for a computer, what I can afford. I guess I want to talk to Jesse about what he thinks would be how much I should spend. Of course, my girlfriend is in the accessibility community, and she's extremely astute. But I mean, she doesn't feel like I really on that level where computers are going to do me a whole lot more good than what I'm already doing, which is mostly iOS mobile gaming. So she doesn't think that maybe necessarily I need to go out there and get a very expensive rig. Not to mention I'm very terrible at maintaining them. But I'd like to get something so I can play things like Monster Rancher. I think it has another name now, but I am actually an old Super Nintendo kind of game player. Like I'm okay with 8-bit. And long as it has accessibility things built into it, I'd really love to do some of that for my channels because I'm really big into monster raising. I love
Mhm.
strategy games. I used to play, speaking of card games, I used to play this Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy X had this card game that I basically played for most of 2 years. It was just so fun. It was so super simple because I was really into Final Fantasy games, but they're little side missions. And I know we
Mhm.
don't have time to get into this, but I just want to mention developers, please don't stop your games once you're done. Give us something to play when we're done. And that's the thing. A lot of you give us a beautiful game and then you say, okay, see you later, bye. And then I'm holding my white cane and I'm just standing there in the middle of the street. I'm like, well, that's a little dramatic.
Well,
Give us a little something to do when a game is over, whether it's some RNG, a shuffle game, a card game, a little bit of random monsters, a super boss, things like what Final Fantasy, games on the old Super Nintendo and ColecoVision and all those used to do. Give us something really difficult that's near impossible to beat, but that we can work toward beating. I noticed that super bosses are not in many mobile games. They want you to play every day, and that's great. But sometimes I just want to do something fantastic that requires an enormous amount of effort on my part that I'm only going to accomplish when I'm the very, very best. And I'd love to see more things happen at the end of accessible games. But what I'm looking forward to next year, I'm looking to playing Conjuring. Like I said, as soon as that good friend of mine starts giving me some more information about it. But I'm also looking to talk to some folks like Jesse who know how to work with AT, who work with computers. I mean, how much do I need to play and stream? Not even stream, just record and play on my computer. I mean, I don't want to
I don't think you need a
spend
big
some
rig on that.
thousand
Just
bucks,
well,
no.
I don't think you need to because you barely need a video card because you're not going to be doing a video
Well, here's the
challenging
thing.
game.
It depends. See, here's the thing is what going to PC is going to get you is you can start with a kind of a bargain basement or like a kind of an entry level.
Yeah.
And you could put, I wouldn't say you definitely don't need like the top of the line, but it may not be a bad idea to go just that step or two above an entry level because here's the thing. is, yeah, there are some simple games, that are more like, 8 or 16-bit style, or they're text-based, or they're designed for blind players, whatever. And those are pretty low spec requirement. But what going to the PC affords you is, what I've noticed a lot of, like even the ones that are really deep, like Idle Icta, Planet Life, any of these types of games, a lot of them, like you're really just clicking buttons and watching status bars get bigger. Like there's depth to it, there's, and things like that. But like there's you're kind of just tapping buttons, but you're not really
Right. Mhm.
controlling anything. Whereas when you get to PC and console, you get more direct control over your character, whether it's an overhead game like The Legend of Zelda, whether it's a side scroller, like Mario or Contra, whether it's a first or third person game where you're exploring like a 3D world. The accessible, like having a computer opens up so many more types of genres to you. And especially like one of the things that I've liked this last few years, and even this year has been really good. Um, I just want to talk about a couple highlights of, PC and console games. Like somebody had mentioned Mortal Kombat 1 this year. They did, even from like Mortal Kombat 11 to the Mortal Kombat 1. Now they have fully narrated menus. They have, all the interface. You can look up the move lists. They have audio description for all the story mode has movie cutscenes in it. It has they do audio described fatalities, which is freaking hilarious. Um, but
Yeah.
I mean, literally,
Yeah.
we've had like at least like what, 3 or 4 different games this year, AAA and indie, that have had audio description in their games. Like there's another one, I want to mention a couple indies here. There's one called Brock the Investigator. It's a combination of a point and click adventure, but it also has parts of the game where you're playing like a 2D, like a Double Dragon beat 'em up type of deal. So you're fighting
Yeah, I've heard
dudes,
about that
and
one.
it's really
Yeah.
good.
Hmm.
There's another point and click adventure that's really, it's geared, now granted, this one is geared more toward younger gamers. It probably took me a couple hours to beat tops, but it is done so fantastically well. Like to get a new user into computers or consoles, to get or like I said, a lot of the games that have been made accessible, they're more geared toward older gamers. But there's a game called Stories of Blossom. It's got really nice like hand drawn art, like art visuals, but then it has, full menu narration. It has, it's a point and click adventure, but it's a really just kind of a cute storybook game. They have audio descriptions for all the scenes and all the characters, and it is phenomenally well done. On the AAA side, like I said, like it was really tough being a judge for the innovation and accessibility category, because like I wanted to give, like, Brock the Investigator and Stories of Blossom are amazing, and they're made by like, 1 or 2 people. But on the other hand, it's like I still kind of wanted to like I kind of almost wanted to vote for um Forza, not because like not because it's a AAA game, but because that game is so complex. This is a simulation racing game where you were going on tracks, you're racing, it's not arcade style. It's, you got to really pay attention to the road, the curves, your car, you can tune and everything. Um, and there are, for the past several years before it came became blind accessible, there were a lot of gameplay assists. You could have steering and braking assist. You could have, there's a visual guiding line that follows the track and it kind of shows you like, oh, you should probably slow down a little bit here, or this is the way you should, maybe you come into this corner a little wide and then come to the inside, or this one you want to take a little tighter. But it shows you kind of the way you would drive on that track, and you can turn on or off or tune up and down those assists. But now on top of that, you got this complex racing system, and they've added all these extra audio cues, text to speech. But like a blind player can literally, once, I mean, granted, trust me, there is a learning curve. But if you want to dive into a simulation racing game, you could. start with all the assists on and get used to things, gradually back things off, and eventually you could literally not only play through races and the single player stuff, but you could, as a blind player, you could literally go online and you have those extra audio cues. And you could go on and race sighted players in a simulation racing game, which is crazy. That game also has audio description for the cutscenes in the game. So that's like going forward, like I don't even know what surprises we're going to get next year, because I know I've talked to some developers that I know sort of what games they're working on, and potentially because they've asked, the questions about what we would need or want for accessibility and some of the potential there. I'm excited what could be coming from there, but like just the surprises, like games have added things post launch. Brock the Investigator, when that came out, it did not have accessibility. But not only did he add accessibility, he's added he's added the accessibility for pretty much every platform. So even if you haven't, like, let's say you have a Nintendo Switch, um, that game is accessible on the Nintendo Switch. Now, granted, the interface of the Switch itself is not accessible,
Right.
but if you can get into the game, or if you have enough vision and you want to play the game, I've got it running on my Steam Deck. It works. Diablo 4,
Nice.
like, do you want an RPG that you want to get into and you want to spend dozens and hundreds of hours? Diablo 4, it's a dungeon crawler, it's a role-playing game, you're getting loot constantly, you can solo, you can multiplayer, party up with people. It is, like I said, it's got its own like screen reader in it. The problem, like, there's so many games I wanted to come back to this year, but they're just kept being this flood of games that I would have to cover them, or I'd want to cover them, or I'd get distracted. And so there are so many games that I've started this year that I just want to get back to. Like, I'd love to play more Diablo. I'd love to play more Forza. I'd love to play more. I got to finish Brock.
I was telling Michael when we were talking on Friday, like that's one of the things when you're in the field of like reviewing 50 games a year, it's like, oh, I love Empire's Order. I would love to keep playing Empire's Order, but I cannot because I got 30 more games to
Yeah.
review before the end of the year and I got to move on. And same with like
That's because you want
Conjuring.
an excuse for not being as good as me at
Yeah,
Empire's Order.
well, same thing with like Conjuring and Night of Laika, which I'm loving right now. I'm loving both of those games, but I'm like, all right, I've played them both enough, gone far enough to review those games and have a review out. Like I probably should be moving on, particularly here in my December dead period, which is where I kind of, rebuild my pipeline of games that I've reviewed. But I'm just playing too much of those games instead of moving on to the next game. Like I hate that I have to kind of leave some games behind,
Yeah.
to do the job, if you will.
That's why I haven't played as many mobile games this year, is because there's just been this flood of PC and console stuff when it comes to not just blind accessible games, but like games I can play with the vision that I do have. And it has been just literally a feast of retro first person shooter goodness this year. Oh my Lord.
But
So
what about you, Aaron? What are you looking forward to next year, 2024?
Well, that's a good question. Like I said, I'm pretty excited with the Idolica and Conjuring, which I'm playing right now. Those are going to be my first reviews out. I got the developer of Idolica that I interviewed, which was really great conversation. So I'm really excited about those particular games and the fact that I feel like I have been seeing more games come out that I've actually been interested and thought were robust and fun. So I feel like there's been more engaging games, that, as I said, that was kind of my experience in 2023, that I really liked the games that I played. It might have been my favorite year so far of the actual games that I played. And I'm hoping 2024 releases even more games at that level. And there's some people who put out games who I know are working on some future games as well, that I'm really kind of excited to see. There's a resource management game that's supposed to be coming out soon that I'm really kind of interested in, see what this from another developer that I have played his game and interviewed him before, that I'm kind of excited to see what he comes out with. And that's I believe coming out in January. It's the guy who did Lost Air. If you guys know the game Lost Air, he's coming out with a resource management game in that world, like an empire builder game in that world. That I think is coming out in January. So I'm kind of excited to see what that is. So, I'm really looking forward to that. My hope again for my selfishly for the mobile accessible games group itself, like I really want to see that grow even more than it has. I want that to be the place where people come who want to know about accessible games and ask questions and find games and share games. I really just want,
Asking ye shall receive.
yeah, I
Oh
want that
boy,
to
you're really
be,
asking for it.
yeah, I want that to be the go-to place that's where people are saying, "No, have you heard about mobile accessible games? Go join that." I want it to be, a known thing. I don't know how known it is out
It's
there.
known. I mention it all the time.
But I would like it to be well, like I think a majority of blind people know Applefish. Let's just say I would like to be at
Mhm.
that level. I would like people to be like, well, if you go to Applefish, you could go to mobile accessible games. Like I want to be, in that same conversation. I don't know if we're quite there.
Yeah.
I would like to be.
The only problem is I got to actually make a Facebook account then again.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. Well, we are
well, folks,
we are post 2 hours, so I'm
yeah.
gonna go
You
and
want to tell
ask.
them about your vote? Do you want to tell people about what's going on at MAG? Aaron is
Oh yeah,
taking votes for the. Go ahead, Aaron.
yeah,
Drop
yeah.
your spiel.
So yeah, we're right now in December is the voting period for mobile accessible games game of the year, which is the 50 games that I reviewed this year. The community is each community member, which we have about 2,200 members, each get one vote to vote on what game they thought was the best game out of those 50 that I reviewed. So that's Empire's Door is one of the potential choices, and that's open until December 31st. So you can come join the group and put your vote in as long as it gets in there before December 31st, and vote for which of those 50 games you think was the best one that the community's been talking about. So yeah, that's what's been going on in my group right now, and I hope everybody in the community goes and votes, because again, we're talking about that before. Somebody was saying like the American Idol, like again, vote for your game. If you like this type of game, if you like word voyance, you want more word voyance games, you know how you get more of those? Make it be the game of the year and get people talking about it. And then other developers will make more of that type of game. So, your vote counts and means something. So get it out there. And if you don't vote, then you're not going to get the type of games you like. So I encourage everybody to go out there and vote. So as we're here post 2 hours, I'm going to make the final question to both of you is, tell me about something fun and enjoyable that you're engaged in that has nothing to do with games. And I'll go with Jesse first.
Well, sure. Yeah, other than game, like I said, I do a lot of technology accessibility stuff as well, but outside of tech and gaming in general, I got to say the last couple of years I've really been getting back into, or I've really gotten into, I should say, learning to play the drums. I started, 5, 6 years ago probably. But over the last, I would say 2, 3 years, I've just gotten really more into it, and I try to practice, anywhere between like a half an hour to an hour, usually every other day. I've never had an official drum lesson or anything like that. I've kind of just like, I listen to my genre is kind of I listen to a lot of rock.
Yeah.
So anything from classic rock to 80s and 90s and some newer stuff. But it's just really fun. Just I'll just listen to songs that have more, especially in the beginning, songs that have more of a straightforward beat, and I just kind of listen to what I hear and try to experiment. And I've got a playlist of a lot of songs now that I can, it's just a really fun way to relieve stress and jam to
Do you
some
have
tunes. And
do you have a full drum kit? You play on
well,
like drum pads or drum?
I live in an apartment, so
Yeah.
I actually have an electronic drum kit.
Yeah.
And it works beautifully because it's a full kit. It's got the snare and the toms and
Right.
all the cymbals and stuff. But it's got you plug in your headphones to the little box,
Yeah.
and then it's got another cord where you just plug the other end into like I plug it into my phone. I've got a little lightning adapter.
Yeah.
And then I just load up my Google Music. I've got a drums playlist or I got a couple of playlists, and then where I just set it to random, and then or I'll work on a particular song a couple times, and it's fun because every time I go back to them, I kind of get the general song down, and then I've just noticed like over time, like, oh, I would probably be about, 70, 80% of the way there. And now there's some songs where it's like, oh, I've kind of just got this nailed, and now I've got all the subtle parts in there. So it's just been a really fun, interactive way to experience music. It's,
Back in the day when there was a Guitar Hero and that was a thing, I was
ooh,
never all that excited about the guitar part. I got the drum kit and I would play the drums like
oh yeah.
my kids would
I've
pick up
got
the
the Rock
guitar
Band
when they were like
drums.
8 years old, and I would play on the drums
Hmm.
and do the drum part back when I was sighted. And I like that. And as someone said, like, you know you can kind of actually learn the basics of drums
Yeah,
off
I
of
mean,
off of
oh,
that.
absolutely. You learn the
Uh,
timing and rhythm. Like
right.
they don't have the same layout, but yeah, you can that's exactly what happened to me. As I was playing Rock Band and I tried the drum, I tried that part. I'm like, well, this is kind of cool, but I found out that regular electronic drum kits were getting so much better, because before you could kind of tell like they sounded digital. They didn't sound like real drums very much. But now they sound, they're digital, but you got several built-in kits in them, and you can just, play, and they're in the format of like regular kit. I live in an apartment, so I can't use a regular one because I'd be evicted
You
for all
know,
the noise
how much
violations. But
does
the
an electric kit
electronic drum
cost?
kit is great.
How much does that
I like rock.
basic
Um,
electric?
you can get entry level one, like they have little tabletop ones you can get for like $120 or something. But the entry level ones I've seen some for probably, I don't know, 300-400 bucks. I think I
Oh,
paid like
that's
eight, 900 for mine several years ago,
I got my son, so he did
but I
drums
got a
for.
Roland. It's a
Yeah,
Roland drum
I,
kit.
my son did drums for a few years, like 3 years, and we bought him, a real, a non-electric, traditional drum
Hmm.
kit, and it was a pretty nice set. It was only like $200.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
it
yeah.
wasn't that bad. I was really surprised at how inexpensive it was, and also did not make me feel too bad when he gave it up. Like I didn't
Hmm. Hmm.
invest that much money into it. Um,
Yeah, I love it though. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've been kind of throwing around that as a potential. Like, so right now I have a finished basement, but my daughter is down there all the time with her friends. So my son's off at college,
Hmm.
my daughter's in high school. So her and her friends are down there all the time in our basement. When she goes off to college one day, I think what I'll do is kind of put a drum kit down there and kind of reclaim that as my space,
There you go.
and maybe get into that because
Oh,
I
go
would like to
for
do
it.
that.
It's totally worth it. It's so fun.
I say you
Um,
turn it into there's a room in failure to launch. The father turns the son's room into a special room. I won't say what it is, but he, when he finally gets him out of the house, he converts his room into his special room with aquarium tanks and lava
nice.
lamps and
Hmm.
yeah.
I'll do that to his bedroom. Um, so Mike, what about you? What's something fun that you're into has nothing to do with game?
Yeah, I definitely want to throw this in there. Yeah, I actually have to leave pretty soon because
Yeah,
I have a D&D group that's bugging the what out of me right now. Like, where are you? We're trying to do loot
yeah,
console.
yeah. That's
Yeah,
why I
I
saw what
am
time it was. I knew you had to get going
yeah,
too.
yeah. I actually that segues into what I wanted to talk about that I'm doing. I've kind of created a game called I won't mention the name because it might be an IP for me one day. But I've kind of created a game that's kind of like Pathfinder, kind of like D&D, fifth edition, but it's my own kind of game. It's got a little bit more active movement. It doesn't do really slow turn-based combat, but it does if it needs to slow down. It's a completely accessible RPG game, a tabletop game, and I've been writing for it. And let me tell you, I'm putting some serious hours into it. And I'm
Cool.
basically taking a lot of fifth edition spells and making them manageable and accessible. And I'm making it a whole community where we're online and you're able to do like crafting and auction houses. I'm basically an MMO all in one person's home on my phone. So you can fish and you can search for stuff, you can communicate, you can have faction wars, you can fight with people, you can do crafting and herbalism and fishing. And I've taken all these random information generators and I've gone and done a ton of research and I basically just created my own little on your phone with my community game. And we get together on Zoom every Sunday and we basically play it for a couple hours. I've got my sons playing right now. My son has a granddaughter. I just want to send a shout out to her. And that's my first granddaughter. And he's playing. And my other son, he's in the military. He's in the Air Force. He's playing. And I've got a couple of gamers from my community. And we're all playing this game that I created. And Aaron, you came in to listen to it, right? So
Yeah,
you
I've
got to
listened a couple
hear a
times.
little bit of it.
Yeah, I've listened
Yeah,
a couple of days.
it's kind of interesting. It's very
Yeah, I'd like to check
deep.
it out at some point.
Jesse, I'll get you the link and you come in and listen anytime you want. Remember, just come in and hang out and see if you like it. And you're welcome to join us because again, I want to hear feedback from those. My sons are both sighted, but several of my players are sighted, several of my players are blind, totally blind. So I'm actually creating this crossover game that kind of covers sighted and those who are not sighted. So I call people who are sighted visually diverse. And that goes along with low vision because you do have some vision that you can use. But then again, I also have people who are visually impaired who are going to need more description. So what I've done is I've taken maps and fully described them. And then what I'll do is I'll go in with audio and I'll do a little animated kind of speech, like you're walking through the tunnel. You see the moss on the ground. So I'm doing my whole audible thing to the scenes in the game. Now, the players don't listen to this during our gameplay. They listen to it during the week when we're not playing. So if you don't care about Rat City, you don't have to listen to all of my Audible movies. But if you want, not Audible, sorry, you don't listen to my audio movies. But if you want to know about Rat City or Roach City, which are some of the locations in my game, I have all these videos that I have unlisted and private, and you can just watch them, or they're in our chat group, and you get to play it. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm checking out this one book. It is an Audible book, since I mentioned it. It's called The Primal Hunter. Man, I am deep into that series. I just knocked out book 7 of that. So yeah, The Primal Hunter is really good. If you two haven't checked it out, it's fantastic. By Zogar.
What is it?
It is an RPG, lit RPG novel,
Oh,
but it's
gotcha.
more grounded. So the character levels up, he gains skills, he increases the rarity of those skills, he fights bosses, and there's some intense, gritty, grindy boss. I mean, this guy's getting his arms blown off, his legs blown off. It really, he does dumb stuff. Not to use an inappropriate term, but he just does stuff that's not advised. And and it's really great because it doesn't have bells and whistles like, say, Dungeon Crawler Carl or something like that. But it does have that really straightforward, really good verbalization by a really excellent reader. And it's a totally accessible lit RPG. And I highly encourage people to check it out. Again, it's very it's innovative and it's inspirational in how accessible it is. So
I
that's
just
what
looked
I'm
it up
doing.
on my phone now, so I'll look and see if it's something I'd be into. But yeah,
Well,
very
so
cool.
you're kind of still a little bit of the thunder of what I was going to say. So last year in this session, we got talking about Dungeon Crawler Carl, which was the first time I had ever heard of a lit RPG, and I've listened to that and loved that series. So I looked at what else was in that genre, and there's one called the Ripple System, which I think is
Ooh.
just about as good. Like
Hmm.
maybe if Dungeon Crawler Carl is a 95, this is a 93. I mean, it's really,
Okay.
really close. I think
Ripple
Dungeon Crawler
System, okay.
Carl, by Kyle Curran or Kieran.
Kyle Curran.
Really, really great. I think there's 4 or 5 books out there now of it.
You're gonna make me broke. It's like
and that is a
$100.
really good one. Really, really great.
If
It
you
has
want-
it has a kind of like Dungeon Crawler Carl DCC has Donut, which is kind of like the really quirky character that you fall in love with.
She does voices for so many series. She's
Oh, it's so
she's
good.
like the universal voice for so many series.
In the Ripple System, he has a sentient talking axe that talks to him. That is hysterical. Named Frank.
Oh man.
It's really, really good. And Frank also, he's an axe that can do no damage. He's just decorative. So he has this big complex that he could do no damage to anybody. So he has.
If you want a couple of other really goofy ones, there's one called 24/7 Demon Mart.
Okay.
Nice.
And that one is like there's a talk like there's all kinds of like it's this convenience store that's kind of got this vortex into all these like monster dimensions and things. And there's a talking cockroach that's hilarious. There's another series that's a little bit more, again, it's a little more like kind of lowbrow humor, but Caverns and Creatures is completely ridiculous. And it's like
Okay,
a
nice.
parody of Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh,
Caverns and Creatures. It's really dumb, but pretty funny.
what was the one? Oh, it's something
Every
something in lattes. Like like swords and lattes.
I'm not sure.
So
the Everybody Loves Large. I'm not going to mention the word, but there's the by Minuet. It's a little cheeky. It is mature, but
Yeah.
that one's a great series.
oh, I wish I
Well,
could
tell you
remember
what,
the
we will all have to put these books in our little group chat on our text messages so we can go look up all these series that I already forgot now.
yeah, I forgot. It's something in lattes, like Dungeons and Lattes, but basically what it is this like female ogre who's done being in a raiding party and decides to go open up a coffee shop. And that's what it's about. It's really kind of
I'm
novel.
down.
Yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
and the whole thing is about her like building a coffee shop and like procuring beans
Yeah,
and
I'm
stuff like
I'm
that.
kind of really interested in that other one that you had mentioned. I already forgot the
Oh,
name
the
of.
Ripple system.
uh,
The Ripple system
Yeah.
is so
Primal
good.
Hunter.
Yeah, you got
Oh,
yeah, I put the yeah, you got to put those two in the chat.
I will.
That was good. Well, yeah, gentlemen, thank you for our second annual year-end
Yeah.
review. Thank you for coming out. And Liam,
Thank you.
sorry that
Looking
you're not
forward to
feeling
the
well.
third.
Hopefully you got some good sleep or rested up.
Yeah.
And we'll see you at the third. But
Hope he
again,
feels better.
thank you so much. And Michael, to your D&D group, sorry that we kept you
Oh, they're
late.
fine. They're doing loot console. They beat the big baddie. Jesse, you're gonna love it. They just fought a big baddie. It was a Darth Maul wannabe because I borrow a lot of stuff from the Zygast of our like D&D community. So they fought this Darth Maul wannabe who had two red lightsaber beams and was doing all this ludicrous like vampire survival moves. So and I was just mauling them with all these repetitive like game mechanics. And my sons, who are big Vampire Survivor lovers, were like, "This is
Oh God, I
awesome!"
love that
I said,
game.
"Oh, it's so amazing." So what I did, Jesse, is I took it and made it accessible. All the pew 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 stuff, I took it and
Hmm.
made it accessible. And basically, my folks who are visually impaired understand what's going on. So I break everything down and describe. Tell me where you're at, and I have this little tactile map in front of me. And
Hmm.
so I tell them, well, you're in the area of effect. So I'm going to give you a second to get out of the area of effect because you're going to get hit by this whirlwind. And just my sons were having a ball because they're not visually impaired, but they're
Hmm.
huge fans of all these pew 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 games. They're huge fans of Metrovanias and
Oh yeah.
they love Castlevania. And I grew up playing those games,
Oh yeah.
prior
I've
to
got a
my vision
Castlevania shirt
loss.
on
Yeah.
right now.
Oh, you do?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
wait, Symphony of the Night? Let me guess.
No, it's just a regular Castlevania shirt. I think
Oh, regular
it's
Castlevania.
yeah, it's like a yeah, I don't know if it's any particular one,
Hmm.
but it's yeah, it's kind of like an animated one or anime type.
Very good. Yeah,
Well, again,
Castlevania on Netflix, folks. It's so good. Check
oh,
it
that
out.
is good. Yeah.
Oh, it's a really good. I got to finish the. I'm midway through the Nocturne series. I need to finish that.
Nocturne gets kind of weird.
Yeah, it does.
Where are we going here? Somebody put the brakes on.
Well, gentlemen, before we depart, anything you need to promote before we sign off to the masses?
Well, sure. I guess I can plug my stuff real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can follow me. I'm still very active on Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it. I wish more people would come back because I love the community there. Um, but I'm pretty active there. But my primary place right now is youtube.com/illegally cited, or just look up illegally cited on YouTube. We talked a little bit in the beginning about all the types of videos that I do. I've got a lot of videos out recently that you might be interested in, hardware reviews and accessible games. I got my Steam Deck OLED review. I've got already recorded some year-end wrap-up videos for the week between Christmas and New Year's. All these games that I haven't gotten around to playing just yet, they'll be covered in the new year. And who knows what's going to happen next year. So yeah, I mean, if you missed it, please check out the Growing Up Illegally Cited series, because especially answering questions that people have asked and really tying it to a lot of different aspects of blindness and disability. I would love for that playlist to get a few more views. But yeah, that is probably the main, Twitter and YouTube.
Excellent. And Michael, yourself?
Thank you. You can check me out on Game Double Tap, GAME space DOUBLE space TAP. And yeah, it's going to be a little hard to find me because it's kind of, game is a very generic word. So just look up some of my games I play. Empire's Order, and you're going to want to look up Lost Vault. If you type any of those things up, 100% I have the top Google search on that. You'll pull me up. So what I do on Game, my first channel, I just do simple under 20-minute reviews. And if you want to sit back and relax with me with your sweatpants on and a cup of coffee or a latte, you can come hang out with me for hours on Game Double Tap. That's where I do the ill-advised Let's Plays on YouTube, which YouTube says, don't do it. I still do. That's it for me.
Excellent. Well, again, guys, thank you so much, and we'll see you again next year.
All right.
Thank you,
Sounds
Aaron.
great. Thank you.